Hey y'all, how you doing? So let's get to it. As Flavius Film says, this is going to be a cool episode. It's going to be very upbeat for the most part. We're going to keep it mostly upbeat. Try to keep the politics to somewhat of a minimum, but there is some stuff to talk about on that front too. Let's talk about the performances because I think the Raptors got quite a few good ones tonight. So first of all, looking at the box score, obviously the Raptors facing a terrible team, and the offense was it tonight because the defense did not really show up. Pretty disconnected overall. OG Anunoby, just a great 3-point shooting performance. Everyone just found him open for those corners, and just really nice to see. He's done it 5 times now in his career. I'm looking forward to when he's going to break it and, go for 7, 8 3-pointers. Scotty Barnes with a triple single, but don't let the numbers fool you. I think he had a really good floor game. I think he was an overwhelming positive, at least on the offensive end. Fred VanVleet, started out 1 for 8, hits those 2 late. Jack Armstrong with the Freudian slip. Oops, here comes the politics. Jack Armstrong saying, the money's on the line. Yep, it sure is. Gary Trent Jr., good game. Pascal Siakam, honestly, started the game out, thought he was going to go for 50 or something, but solid overall performance from him. And the Hornets, obviously buoyed by Terry Rozier and LaMelo Ball. Really, there's about 6 players on that Hornets team who should be on NBA rosters or at least playing NBA minutes. And they were missing Kelly Oubre and Gordon Hayward. So really hard to win when you're a team that bad, missing 2 of your best players. 2 of at least your 4 or 5 best players for sure. Mason Plumlee is no schmo, but Scotty Barnes putting him on that poster was pretty cool. Going over to the team stats, I really like how the Raptors played today. I mean, the ball moved. They still shot worse from the field. I think, wow, the defense, giving up 45% from the field to the Hornets is pretty inexcusable, I would say. And 43% from 3. I mean, these are 2 of the worst. These are the 2 worst 3-point shooting teams coming into tonight, and they shot a blistering 45% for the Raptors and 43% for the Hornets. So that's just absolutely nuts. The Raptors, of course, lived at the line, being at home and being the more aggressive team. They out-rebounded the crap out of the Hornets, which is pretty impressive, to be honest. 49 rebounds to 34. And kept up with the assists. And one thing that, a LaMelo Ball offense is going to have is a lot of assists. And one thing the Raptors usually don't have is a lot of assists. And I got to tell you, tonight was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see the ball moving. And I think one of the biggest catalysts for that was Scotty Barnes. Those nice assists in the first quarter, just playing a full, full, complete floor game. The call-in link is below. Just to set this up a little bit, I did Ask Me Anything on Instagram, and I got some fantastic questions. And I realized so many people on YouTube who are subscribers here don't follow Pensire Basketball on Instagram. So it got me thinking. I was like, man, I would really like to share some of the questions that were asked that were the more interesting questions, at least. And hopefully towards the second part of this, whenever that will be, we'll take a look at some of the post-game stuff. We'll take a break as we did before. We'll look at some of the post-game stuff. We'll react to what Nick Nurse had to say about this game. I'll give you my thoughts, and we'll look at some of those questions that you guys asked on Instagram because, man, every time I think this community is really smart, you guys ask these amazing questions, and whatever respect I have just goes up. We have joining us live from North Carolina, number 23. No, I'm just kidding. FA, how you doing, sir?
Oh my, I'm good. How you doing?
Sorry, man. Like when I hear from North Carolina, it just goes right back to number 23, Michael Jordan. I love it.
Yeah,
Um,
we're in the research triangle with Duke, UNC, and NC State just around the corner. So I'm surrounded by 3 great teams.
this is true. This is true because Lord knows the NBA in Charlotte. Man, I remember Baron Davis, those Charlotte Hornets, Alonzo
Mm-hmm.
Mourning, those Charlotte Hornets. Larry Johnson, those Charlotte Hornets. Those are some really exciting times in Charlotte Hornets history. I remember being in New York and I used to see kids with like Charlotte Hornets gear. It was like the coolest thing. Fly. What the hell has happened to this franchise over the last 20 years? That is anybody's guess. But the Bobcats were just terrible every single year. I think, who would you say is the best player in Bobcats history? Was it Gerald Wallace?
What was Jamal Mashburn?
Well, that was Hornets. I don't think he
Okay.
transitioned over to the Bobcats. But yeah, like Mashburn, Baron Davis. I used to love this team in 2K. What'd you think of the Raptors tonight, man?
Oh God, they shouldn't be winning these games, man. Because
But how do you lose these games?
it, it,
You
it,
know how
it was
bad you have
it
to be
was
to lose this
it,
game?
it was like I put something on Twitter. By the way, folks listening on the call, please join Pensari Basketball on Twitter. Follow Pensari Basketball. We need more
Thank you so
followers.
much.
We need more followers there. I respond to your tweet on Twitter saying that this is the closest that both sides are going to get to the All Star games, except for Pascal. I call this I call this Canadian All Star games because it was just like free flowing, no defense, and I don't know if the Charlotte Hornets are ever going to be a good basketball team because they were not even trying at all. And shout out to OG Ryan, you mentioned Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes only scored is it 7 points, but seven of those assists, right? Seven of those 3 pointers were assisted by Scotty Barnes, and six of the other 3 pointers were assisted by Pascal. So doing the math, that's 13 already out of the 23 pointers on the game.
Yeah, I mean, look, like ball movement is always going to facilitate wide open looks. Like that ball reversal that Scotty did. Luckily, they showed it from the top. It's
Mhm.
just so interesting to get a preview into the future when he's actually going to be double teamed and how he reacts to double teams. Late in the game, they pressured him really hard and he almost threw it out of bounds. So it's still a bit of a mixed bag, but when he's expecting to get doubled, it's usually fantastic. And he does that reversal to Siakam, and then Siakam finds the open shooter. So it's
Yeah,
really
but
great.
speaking of Pascal, right? Pascal, once he makes up his mind, he doesn't pass the ball. Like no, like once his mind is fixed, he needs to do better on that. He had a great game anyways, but he can do better, right? That's how you become
Look, honestly,
that's how you become from a good team to a great team.
when teams figure out which guys are not willing to pass to which guys on this team right now, I don't know if you're watching it, but you kind of seeing like there's an over
Hmm.
emphasis from one guy passing to a particular set of guys and the other guy will only pass to a particular set of guys. Doesn't matter
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
open. They're just looking each other off. And that's just not how you play. Because I mean, when you're watching at home, you see what the right play is. Like, okay, like this
But what
dribble
you just
handoff.
said, right? What you just said now, right, really baffles me how these basketball players, right? If me watching the game at home, I can already see trends from not only Raptors team, from other teams, right? Why can't these guys really figure it out and like, okay, this guy, I don't even need, I can slack off this guy because he's not going to get the ball and things like that. Like,
Hmm.
I was watching LeBron, right? LeBron knows the 17th player on the team. He knows their game, right? That's why LeBron is great. He doesn't just only scout the regular starter, he scouts everybody. And that's why you see that's why you see the difference between just being good and taking your game to greatness.
No, I agree, man. Like I don't think this was a good performance by any means. I mean, as I said, it's there were some promising notes though. And one of those promising notes was Precious Achiuwa. To keep it positive. Because this is a win. I realize this channel sometimes.
I'm glad they left him after I made the first like the first when he drove to the basket and just threw the ball. Somebody put a comment somewhere that that so that Ashua and Chris Boucher their IQ together is one. So I'm glad it's coming back and he had a good game,
Yeah. I mean, with
but
Boucher, it's a little bit different because he is 29 years old, and I mean, he picked up the game a little bit later, so I
But
understand.
but this guy picked up the game a little bit later too, right? So I don't think that
Precious?
no, not precious. You either have it or you don't. This guy
No, I,
from
I I agree.
this guy from
Vision and
Philadelphia.
understanding. Yeah, no, vision and
Joel
under.
Embiid.
Go ahead.
Joe Embiid picked the game up later too, and you can Embiid has an IQ.
I mean, Embiid still throws some pretty ridiculous passes at people's ankles. I'm not gonna lie, but you're right. He sees the game way better than any of the guys we're talking about here. But he is a superstar. Like that's a completely different category of guy. But I think with Boucher and Precious, look, I liked what I saw from Precious tonight. He had a shaky start to last year. I know they called it out on the broadcast, but last year, like towards the second half of the season, he was really good.
Yeah, it was
And
really good.
his combination of rebounding, like someone asked in the Instagram questions, why is the Raptors rebounding so bad? And simple answer obviously is like scrambling defense, lots of zone, not set box out assignments, but Precious Achiuwa solves a lot of that. And I think you saw that tonight, right? Like if 40, you out rebound this team, they do have a center in Mason Plumlee. He's not a bad player. He's actually quite a good player. I'd say he's an average starting center in the NBA. And to be honest, like what did Steven Adams do to him? I know that Steven Adams and Mason Plumlee are not the same player, but it's a legit 7-footer inside. The Raptors do tend to get burned by these guys quite a few times. And I think tonight they handled it well because they played with a lot of size. And I think this is
But I
now
want to shout out to Christian Koloko too, right? Because he's been
big
playing really
time.
well the last three games. So let's not forget Christian Koloko.
Big time. And this is like he hit that three. You remember that game? He hit that
Yeah.
three. And he's been on a completely different arc or a different trajectory since that shot. Like he's been really good. And I
And
I am
what
just
does that tell you? The difference between a good and a great player, or a bad and a good player, is confidence, right? That's why sometimes the coach also helps the player when give them confidence, right? Like when Larry was in Toronto, you where we pass to one of the bench players, they'll miss the shot. Larry will get the ball. Larry will pass to the same player again. Like you know what, I'm gonna help you grow.
yeah, no, absolutely. And look, like I think Christian Coloco is a really smart player. I've been saying this since summer league, and don't ask how I know. I'm just watching the guy play. I'm watching him answer questions. I'm watching him read and react to situations, and I've watched him grow. Granted, I didn't watch him much as a freshman at Arizona, but I did watch him in his second and third year, and the growth I've seen in his game,
Hmm.
like he doesn't. I'm not saying he never makes the same mistake twice, but I'm saying like a couple months apart, you see the growth every time you watch him. If you watch him a couple months apart, every single time there's something new in his game, a new wrinkle, a new thing that he's not quite doing. And right now, the real issue is finishing because he's such a wide lob target. If you have a half decent passer on your roster, and we certainly do have one in Scotty Barnes, and we have another in Pascal Siakam, and another who will never play again, and Jeff Doughton Jr. So we do have these guys who can find him open, and as if he can learn how to just screen, like
Hmm.
then Clint Capella becomes the floor for what he can become. But I think he has more of an offensive game than Clint Capella ever did. And that might sound like a pretty hot take because
No, I think it's gonna get stronger, right? Or maybe at the
absolutely.
offseason they can finish with contact. So
No, absolutely. Look, like I've identified, like, as I scout quite well. Like I think extensively, at least this year notwithstanding. This is my worst year ever for calls, but in previous years, I remember guys like Serge Ibaka. I remember watching tape of him really early, and I was like, man, this guy's really going to be good. I remember Clint Capella. There's guys like that you can just sort of see that they have not only the physical tools and the motor, but also like the baseline intelligence to expand their
mhm.
game out and actually function at the NBA level. And and Christian Coloco definitely has that. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's just going to keep evolving for the Raptors going forward. And what else stuck out to me tonight? I mean, we can get into it a little bit later. Some of the politics stuff.
But
I do
but
want
the
to
question
address.
is,
Yeah.
where do we go from here?
Well, okay. So I mean, let's. You want to handle this question now, eh? All right. I mean, I guess it's a thought on probably a lot of people's minds. So let's talk about it. Where do we go from here? So some people have said the Raptors have the easiest schedule from here on out. I think there's some credence to that. Tankathon has them with the fourth easiest schedule. I don't know which way you want to believe this should be broken down. I think the Raptors probably have an easier schedule than the fourth easiest schedule, though. And I'll tell you why. Because some of the teams that they're facing, they're better now than they will be when they face them because of the tank, right? There's
That's true.
also three very hard games to close out the season against Boston, and Milwaukee. I believe those are the final three games for the Raptors. And at that stretch of the season, those three teams will probably be like resting guys, and that happens every single year.
It
S-
depends, though. They might be fighting for position.
I doubt it. I mean, like maybe, maybe if there isn't separation, but I do expect it would be very rare, very unexpected later down the season for a team to be playing Jason Tatum like crazy minutes, given the serious injury risk that could occur. Like I expect guys to dial down the intensity, dial down diving for loose balls. What I'm saying is, when the Raptors meet the Boston Celtics, they will be the more desperate team, is what I'm saying, right?
Depends on who we have, right? There's no trade, right? So there's a lot of
Well,
factors
if
that
we're
come
not,
into play.
if we're fighting for a playoff spot at that point, is what I'm
Oh
saying.
yeah,
Like if
yeah,
we're
yeah.
if we're at seventh and they're at
Hmm.
first, I think at that point we will be the more desperate team. And obviously, facing that team right now, we probably get blown out or we get beaten pretty
Hmm.
badly. But facing that team at that point, I think there's, and also, I mean, let's not remove the elephant in the room. Regardless of whether we're tanking or not, there will be guys who will be gunning for contracts, a final 50 point game to boost the averages, etc. Right? And while, obviously I've been harping about this sort of hero ball, money ball, well, not money ball, I don't want to give that film a bad name, but like the money element, the
Hmm.
elephant in the room, you know, um,
You bet on yourself.
that whole thing, right? And it's like, when you look at the new CBA, the temptation looming for the players, this is life-changing money. I read an article a couple of days ago about the various contracts that Fred could potentially sign. And, it goes anywhere from the 114 offer supposedly that, he got and rejected and, they agreed to move on, or he's saying he didn't get it, whatever, who cares what happened there.
He was
Um,
all in the language. You said he did not get a formal offer, so meaning he got an informal offer. So
Exactly. No, this shit happens all the time. I phoned up someone right after that happened, and he was just like, that was a very smart political move by him to qualify it as formal. But like, you go anywhere from 114 to 130, and then there are actually scenarios in which he could be looking at as much as 200 million. I'm not kidding. Like this guy could be
yeah.
betting on himself that large. And, if you're someone who has irrational confidence, that might be within the realm of possibilities of what you're going after. I do think that this team is very divided. I had a friend of mine who went to the game today, and he's a sweetheart of a human being, because I said, hey, like I can't come to the game tonight. Can you
Hmm.
stream some of the off court stuff? Like I just want to see like the bench reactions, like just focus where the camera wouldn't be focused the whole time, and just we'll FaceTime through it, or and it was very interesting to watch the dynamic on this team. There is a clear divide, a very
Hmm.
clear divide between certain guys and certain guys. Um, to speak of what happened the previous game, that whole interaction with that and Scotty, which has just, it's polarized the entire fan base. I was watching Breakfast TV yesterday, and JD Bunkus and Sid Sixero, these two irresponsible lunatics, hockey guys. They're both hockey guys, right? So they just love to talk basketball, and especially in a negative light. And they addressed this Scotty and Thad beef, and they said, how can a second year guy go up to a 20-year vet? I mean, can you imagine being so incomprehensibly stupid that you wouldn't even bother to Google how many years Thaddeus Young has played? I mean, these two should really be firmly on blast.
Hmm.
I mean, do they have to issue retractions? Like, I mean, you're brainwashing a fan base with like complete bullshit. And then they go on to say that effectively that, like this is Scotty Barnes hearing the noise. Scotty Barnes is not, not ready for the season, and this is why he's frustrated. And then they insinuated that it was pregame. Now, I have a friend who went to the game last game as well, and he gave me a very different account of what happened. Have you actually heard what happened?
No.
So this entire thing has been built up as Scotty and Thad issue, when in fact it was actually a Fred and Gary issue. So I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but last year when Scotty came in as a rookie and he was asked who his favorite player was, do you remember who he said?
Pascal.
Pascal Siakam. Do you know why he
Hmm.
said that? Do you actually think his favorite player is Pascal
No.
Siakam, or ever has
No.
been?
I think
Exactly.
that was in the G League game, right, where he was sitting behind Pascal and
And
yeah.
he gives him a high five, and he says,
Hmm.
"This is my favorite player," et cetera, et cetera. Part of that was Pascal was coming off a pretty rough stretch in his career
Hmm.
up until that point, And of course, Pascal was going through an injury, right? So, because he started the season out on the injury reserve, and because he's had quite a 2 year rough stretch, Scotty felt the need to give him a lot of
Support
hugs,
him.
and it was a very weird interaction because Pascal's not really big on that, randomly being given a hug stuff, right? But Scotty kept embracing him with love, kept shouting him out on Instagram, kept bigging him up because that's just what Scotty does. When someone's struggling, he helps. When Pascal Siakam came back last year, the Raptors dropped four straight. If you recall,
Yeah.
Pascal's defense was pretty porous. He had to be talked to. I remember that very clearly. And of course, there was a problem because the Raptors had been sort of thriving without him. They were 3 or 2 games above 500. Scotty Barnes was going well. Fred VanVleet was going well. OG was all right. And inserting Siakam into that lineup disrupted everything because now people didn't know where they were going. So if you recall, in December, Scotty Barnes took a major step back on offense. No
Mm-hmm.
one else would, so he did. Why did he do that? It was to get Pascal going. And it wasn't until after the All-Star break that he kind of just came back into it. Are you still there?
I'm
Oh,
still here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you got locked
Mm-hmm.
out. This offseason, what happened? OG Anunoby was offered in a trade, and it was real. OG confirmed it, right? So now
Mm-hmm.
Scotty Barnes comes into training camp this year. What does he do? Who's your favorite player?
OG.
OG. Who would you take over? Would you take OG over Michael Jordan, Scotty Barnes? Yes, I would take him
Mm-hmm.
over Magic. I would take him over Michael. I would take him over Kareem. He's my
Mm-hmm.
best friend. I would play if you could play with one player on this team. Who would you play with, Scotty?
OG.
OG. So this is just a guy who helps whoever is struggling. So when Gary
Mm-hmm.
Trent Jr. gets called out by his coach, gets demoted to the bench in a contract year, by the way, which is basically you're declaring war on Gary Trent Jr. right
Mm-hmm.
now. Kudos to Gary Trent. I
He,
didn't like him.
he took the high road and was professional and
He took the
played
high road,
and,
man. Like
and,
because
and played his best basketball.
oh yeah, you think he was happy about this playing like minimal minutes, coming off the
Because
bench, getting
wasn't the one
called
that was
out.
playing.
He,
Van Vliet
if
was playing like trash and nothing like that happened, right? So.
Exactly. And so basically, Scotty is like, okay, I'm gonna protect my teammate. Scotty, you know who else Scotty came to the defense of last year?
Malachi.
Gor- Malachi and Goran Dragic. When people called out Goran Dragic on his chat, right, on his Twitch feed, and they were going at him, Scotty Barnes said, "Goran's my guy. Goran's a really good dude. He was really good to me," which is all true, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And now, even though Thaddeus Young, in my opinion, is taking a bit of a political side with the veterans, he still comes out and says, "That is my boy." Look, at the end of the day, this is just a guy who cares a lot. You can call me a fanboy, you can call me whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. The truth is
Because
that
you can see what you just said, right, about Tad, right, on the bench, right, the dynamics, like when Scotty comes out of the game, doesn't sit close to those folks, he goes like to the extreme end, and
exactly.
Tad is like in the middle, separating Pascal from Vliet from the rest, and OG also sits with Scotty and everything, so they're like two different camps.
Exactly. Exactly. And so basically now you have a player, and I mean like look, his heart is big. I think anyone who's ever, seen Scotty Barnes talk to anybody, whatever, there's stories. Like I don't know if people have heard the story from Leonard Hamilton. Leonard
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton talked so glowingly about Scotty Barnes last year but for those of you who don't know, Leonard Hamilton was Scotty's coach at Florida State,
Mm-hmm.
one of the best, most respected, hardest, toughest men. And by the way, a good man, a really good man, like solid human being. Take it. I've talked to a lot of people who've met him, and they just can't stop glowing that when you're in his presence, you feel like you're with a real leader. And he said that Scotty was like the greatest teammate. When he had to go to the bench after he pulled his groin because he had to do the warm up bike, he never complained about coming off the bench because it would hurt his draft stock. He said if it helps the team, I'll do it. When his minutes.
And what you just said, right, is
Mhm,
what is wrong with the team right now because last year Scotty was the one pulling everybody, was like the happy guy and everything. But this year, when Scotty was down with his numbers and things going on, shots not he's not making his shots with his
mhm.
injuries and everything. Nobody stood for him. Nobody supported him, right? And then he didn't show that happiness, and that reflected on the team. Because the other guys, they were like, oh, these are my numbers. Okay, we're doing the job. But when somebody brings that joy to the team, right, it brings the team together and brings chemistry around the team, which is absolutely missing this year.
No, absolutely. And I mean, this is just a guy who supports whoever's down. And it doesn't matter, like, look, the truth is, like, be honest with yourselves, guys. Like, you at home, whatever, you've
Mhm.
met political people in your life, right? What are they always thinking about? What's in it for me, right?
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, mhm.
if we're being completely sincere and honest here, Gary Trent and Chris Boucher are probably on their way out. Okay, let's be real.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah. Mhm.
there's enough smoke at this point to say that. But
But the problem with that is you just try on the way out and you leave. VanVleet has to go. But either you have to keep VanVleet or keep
we
Scott. You
we,
can't
we
keep two of
will
them
we will
together.
definitely get into Fred VanVleet a little bit later. But what I want to
You
say
can't
is
you
just,
can't keep two of them on the same team. Basically.
yeah, like I just want to say, like, that to me, it's so interesting that Scotty would know that Gary is probably on his way out, that he probably, and I'm not saying I'm reporting this, but I have read it, and I think most people could probably read the tea leaves, that Gary Trent is probably
If they don't trade him, right, he's not going to stay. He's going to go to another
right,
team,
because
and
because
his
he's
trade
right
value is at
now
its
right now
highest.
Gary Trent Jr. is embodying bet on yourself as well. He's just doing it
Yes.
in a very positive way, right?
Hmm.
And look, at the end of the day, Scotty Barnes, if he's a political guy, what's he going to do? He's going to say, Gary, you're on your way out. I got to stay here. They're not trading me. You're on your own, right? But that's not what Scotty would do, because that's not what good people do. Good people stick with the person who is being hurt, right? So at the end of the day, if what's happening to Gary Trent is not fair, and I believe it's not fair, I think it's extremely irresponsible of a coaching staff to call it a guy in his in his contract year openly in the media. Like, was his
I'm,
defense
uh,
that much worse than it was last year? No, it's not. Like, it hasn't dropped off that.
I'm never gonna, I'm not gonna talk about that because that was really like, as a coach, right? If you're not calling the leaders out, then don't call anybody out. You have to be
I
fair
agree. This is like
across
the
the board.
anti San Antonio Spurs, because in the San Antonio
Yeah,
Spurs, like, you always had Greg Popovich, when he coached through the media, he would call out
it,
Timmy, Manu,
mhm.
and Tony. That was it. He
And even
very rarely called out
when they
anybody
play
else.
when they play badly, it's not going to take the like. Okay, you can see Scotty makes a mistake or one of the young players makes a mistake. He can also pull them out for like 5 minutes. Or at least the veterans that are making mistakes over and over. Popovich will remove the whole starting lineup and and put the bench.
Absolutely. Anyway, man, I really
All
appreciate you
right.
coming on. Thank you so much. This was probably the longest chat you and I have ever had. I'm sorry for talking so much,
No, no,
but
that's fine. I
but
don't
it
have
was
I don't have my partner today. He's in
your
Jamaica for on
brother.
vacation. He's
He's
in
in Jamaica.
Jamaica on
All right,
vacation. Yeah.
NY4 Raps in Jamaica during the winter. Good for him, getting out of New York during this time of the year. Smart dude. All right,
All right.
take care.
Thanks, everybody. Join him on Facebook, and Twitter and Instagram. Plug. Join him on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Yeah, I deviated from the norm. I tweeted throughout the game, like jokes and screenshots and stuff. It was kind of cool. Figure we have about 200. We've had an account for about a week and a half, guys, but it'll be nice to get a little bit bigger, because I think it will allow us to, I say us, I mean me. It'll allow me to call out the media in a more responsible way, with a little bit more traction. Oh yeah, like yesterday when JD Bunkis went on breakfast television, you damn well bet that I made a tweet about it. All right. Next up, we got Chris, and then we got Coach Mo. Chris, what up, man?
How you doing, Robert?
I'm good. How are you?
Uh, I don't know how to feel, honestly. To tell you the truth, like this team, it's so funny. Like this whole weekend, I was on Tankathon. I watched a bunch of college games this weekend, and I was set. Like I was preparing. I had my players that I was going to keep my eye on for the rest of the season,
Yep.
just to bring them up. Maybe we could talk about them maybe a little later.
Hmm.
So Brandon Miller's my top guy right now. I'd like if we actually end up sucking, but I don't think we're going to be that bad. Just the way the
It's
schedule.
gonna be hard to be that bad, because the
Yeah,
top three teams, right, that are really tanking, like, you're gonna have to face them a lot over this next stretch, and it's gonna be really hard. Like, if anyone on your team is playing, and I'm talking literally anybody, if OG is playing but all the other guys aren't playing, it'll be hard to lose that game. That's how much more talented the Raptors are than most of those teams, in my
exactly.
opinion.
I agree.
So
So that's why I've kind of like stopped. Like like Brandon Miller, he's like more so my dream if we end up being that bad or some reason the balls jump our way and we end up in the top four again. So I
Okay.
really like him. I also like Jet Howard. I feel
Okay.
like he's gonna be more in the range where we end up. So in the late lottery, right at the end of the lottery, late lottery, that's probably where we're gonna end up at the end of the season. So I really like him as well as Chris Murray as well too. I think
Hmm.
those guys will fit very well next to Scotty. Um,
Okay.
any opinions on any three of those players? Watched them at all?
Not as much. I've watched Brandon Miller. I really like the fit. A lot actually. I see exactly what you're talking about completely. Scoot and Victor goes without saying for sure. And a lot of people have been telling me about Anthony Black being pretty amazing. Um,
I
so
I like.
what do you like? Honestly, like, okay, so here's a crazy hot take.
Mm.
I think we might end up with Baba Miller, man.
Funny enough, because I follow you on Twitter. I saw you retweet when he said he's free or something like that because he's
Oh
eligible
yeah,
now to play.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He
Yeah.
is he does fit Vision 6'9". He
He's
does
six
fit.
eleven, so he really
Yeah,
does fit Vision 6'9". Yeah,
yeah. So no, I'm definitely intrigued. I'm definitely excited to see him finally play.
yeah.
I'm always a big fan of tall, long players that are show a lot of versatility and a lot of very good
Look,
skill
man,
set.
like anytime a player chooses to go to Florida State, I'm with them forever. I don't know why. I'm a big Seminoles fan. It's not just because of Scotty. It's not just because of Pat Williams, and it's not just because of Jonathan Isaac or Terrence Mann. It just goes way back for me. And
Well, it's because of Leonard.
congrats, by the way, to Leonard Hamilton, 600th win. Big up for the Seminoles. I know this is a Raptors channel, but I'm shouting out the Seminoles because, I'm just a huge fan of the way that man coaches. And, I went on a huge, like, hour-long rant in my last chat about how young men need leadership. Sometimes young, men who, especially those who've had to grow up without a father, really need leadership. And I think Leonard Hamilton is the man. So anyone who chose to go there does not give a shit about their stats. That I love, because you're going 10 deep, you're switching 1 through 5, you're playing hard nosed defense, you get nothing. If you do not defend, you will not play. I think like anyone who chooses to go there wants to be held accountable, and I think that's a huge thing. So I always look at FSU prospects.
Yeah, definitely. So another thing I wanted to bring up is
Hmm.
it's about Nurse. Actually, I feel like there's a bit of lack of accountability when it comes to him right now. I feel like he's a big part of what's going on with Toronto. Personally,
Hmm.
honestly, I don't know. You can probably let me know if you agree, but I feel like he kind of lost the team ever since he sent Gary to the bench.
Hey man, I think this has been brewing for a long, long, long time. Okay. Okay, I don't know anyone who follows me on Facebook, you can shout me on the comments, but I went on a tirade about the relationship between Fred and Scotty as early as October last year. That's when I first called it out. I started making posts about it. I started talking about it. Don't have to ask me how I know. I'm seeing the body language. I'm seeing Fred go up to Scotty. I'm seeing Scotty walk away. And obviously, if you're an old head or maybe, an uninvolved person, you might think, who the fuck is this rookie to walk away from an NBA champion? If you frame it like that, he sounds like an asshole, right? But you have to see the other side of it, right? You have to see how certain leadership styles rub people the wrong way. Also, I got to tell you, I watched a lot of really great young players come up. LeBron, Kobe, T Mac. Trust me, like a real like the true sign of a guy who has it and has the potential to have it in the playoffs
Oh
is a
yeah,
guy who can challenge a vet. Kobe went at Michael Cooper so hard, like in training camp. I remember Kevin Garnett as a rookie would like sometimes jaw off at vets. Paul Pierce did it. Like to me, it's like if you're a subordinate, like you lack dog, like that dog in you. Like I like guys who have that dog mentality.
but to me,
Um,
who's enabling Fred though? That's the question.
who's what?
Who's enabling Fred?
Well, unfortunately, like I think it's the most interesting question here is, what do the people who are eventually going to make a decision on this matter actually think? Right now, I've heard a lot of people. Now, I think I've mentioned in the past chat that I do know somebody very close to the team, and I mentioned to this person 3 months ago that they need to trade Fred VanVleet, and I've been very open and honest about my thoughts on that. I don't like his fit with Vision 6'9", and I don't necessarily like his fit in this locker room.
I'm worried they're going to trade the wrong guard.
Pardon?
I'm worried they're going to trade the wrong guard in a couple weeks.
Well, the Gary thing is really out of their hands at this point, right? I mean, they don't really have a choice. If he's kind of told them, I'm not coming back after I've been treated this way, then you're going to lose him for nothing. So you might as well get something, because the rumor floated out today that they're looking for a late first round pick. I mean, you can deduce from that they're not thinking about competing this year, because if they were, then they would be looking for actual, like, tangible assets they can use this year. Jay says Scotty clamping Fred and Pascal in practice and they salty about it. Problem solved. That's funny. So at the end of the day, I think. So what was your question? You said who's enabling?
Yeah, to me, it comes back to Nick Nurse, because, like, have you noticed that nobody else calls Nick Nurse the best coach in the league on this roster other than Fred VanVleet?
Well, do you realize that also Fred VanVleet unfollowed Nick Nurse as well? So he still follows Rico Hines, which is a really weird thing, but he unfollowed Nick Nurse, which I found very odd and bizarre. But look, Fred VanVleet has already talked about it in previous post game, that he and coach have gone back and forth a few times. I think if he's telling you that, they've gone back and forth more than a couple of times. I think Nick Nurse is maybe caught between, a rock and a hard place, because there is a future for this team with OG, Scotty, Gary, Koloko, Precious, which is very bright. And I think if we're being honest, Raptor fans would accept it. I definitely do, especially if Pascal Siakam sticks around to keep this team somewhat competent. If Gary, if Fred moves on, I don't think people are going to, I think most people are going to be upset about it for about a week. And then they're going to move on when they see how this team plays without him. Right. But Nick Nurse, he's a loyal guy, right? He's always been loyal to Fred for whatever reason. And it doesn't matter what the reason is, whether Fred has compromising information on him or whether he just really identifies with the guy. And I don't deny that he identifies with the guy, because you know what? Every time I've met like an ardent Fred VanVleet supporter, like really strong Fred VanVleet supporter that's not from Rockford, just from Toronto, they kind of look like Nick Nurse. They talk like Nick Nurse. They think like Nick Nurse, scrappy, underdog, typically, no offense, white, I see that the Canadian media is supporting Fred VanVleet. No matter what he does, he can go and help a guy up off the floor and they're going to tweet about it, right? Scotty Barnes can literally look at a person the wrong way and they're going to hate on it. So, some people...
You mentioned it, like, he's so easy to market into this...
Scotty?
No,
Fred? He is so easy to market. He kind of looks like Toronto. He looks like a Toronto man. If Fred VanVleet was walking through Brampton, you'd be like, that guy's been here his whole life, right? Yeah. He just looks like a dude who's from here. He kind of acts like a dude who's from here. Unfortunately, like he has
and he's
he is marketable. Pardon?
He's a smooth operator.
He's very smooth. I mean, if I always thought about him, like, man, if Scotty Barnes just came out and just said something to the media about what they've been saying, right? Like, it would end in 12 seconds. But he's not doing it. He's not being like, hey, this is how I worked out. This is the video proving that I worked out in the off season, so y'all can stop capping like bullshit. But he didn't do that. So it's like, it's kind of strange to me, but obviously something has changed with Scotty over the last 5 games or so. Pardon?
To me, that shows that he's secure in himself.
He's 100% secure. Like, you don't think he wanted to come out this year and score 20 points per game, 10 rebounds, 10 assists? Of course he did. Of course he did. You think he wants to be scoring 7 points per game? Hell no. This team is not going to win if he scores 20 points per game. And that's not because he can't score 20 points per game on a winning team. He can't score 20 points per game on a winning team that's full of these guys. Because who's going to screen for him? Is Fred going to screen for him? I've seen him do it a couple of times, but he's not going to do it consistently. Look, Scotty's doing all the stuff that's not going to get him paid right now. But interesting fact, and we're going to get into it in the Instagram questions, because man, those Instagram questions were amazing. So we'll talk about what, the value, the contracts, and all that stuff at that point. Do you have any final thoughts?
Um, a good game. Well, I hate to say good game because the opponent was so bad. But we got
Yeah, I
the
know. But the ball moved. The 3-pointers
ball.
dropped. Guys padded their stats. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to obviously a great game by Precious. That three's finally falling. Hopefully, is a sign of things to come. Like you mentioned earlier, I really feel like he brings a whole different dynamic to this team for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, with his toughness and his rebounding, and then when he can sprinkle in that three ball, that just opens up the whole rest of his game because now you're closing out at him, and that's the as an opponent, that's the worst position you want to be in, doing a hard closeout to Precious Achiuwa, right? And once he
Oh
like
yeah, he's bursty, man. Like he's got so much athleticism and he's a fluid athlete. Like I've said for a while, like I think, he's probably the cleanest athlete on this team.
oh
Like the cleanest example of an athletic specimen on this team.
he's so fluid. Like he's just like I feel like him and OG are kind of built the same, but he's just so much like fluid than OG because like just the way he moves so much better than OG. Like
Hmm.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, he has all the balance and coordination that you always dreamed for OG. Like if you could put OG's skill set and mindset into Precious Achiuwa's body, like it would be next level. Like it would be probably like a surefire all-star,
oh
perennial all-star.
for sure. Also,
Because everything like OG can't do is something that like almost everything OG can't
that'd be
do.
Brown basically.
Pardon?
I think that's Jalen Brown. I think you just described Jalen Brown.
Yeah, imagine Jalen Brown with Precious Achiuwa's rebounding and OG's defense.
Yeah,
That's dude. I don't want to be like I don't want to be hyperbolizing this, but that's like a soft MVP candidate. Like OG is the thing that holds him back is so extreme. Like his balance and coordination might be the worst on this team. Like
easily.
it's worse than Kem Birch. Like so maybe that's too much, but it's close. It's like it's really bad. Like I've never seen a player who has so much trouble like
Bang.
going from one side to the other on his body. Like I just hope that whoever's training him works with him on it because it has to be fixable. This is a balance issue. His body is not right. And I think that has contributed a lot to his injuries. And I'm actually wondering if some of it stems from the injury that he suffered in Indiana. Because I watched him in AAU and he didn't look like this. He was always a little stiff, but stiff is okay. LeBron's stiff. He's upright, but like not stiff. LeBron's not stiff. He's upright. It's okay to be upright, is what I'm saying. But OG's like he lacks coordination. It's kind of amazing that he's managed to be as good as he is.
That's exactly what I was about to say. The fact that he's as good as he is.
Yeah, I mean, like seriously, like you think about every aspect of his game that he has going for him, apart from his handle and his coordination and balance. Like he's got everything. He's a pretty smart guy. He has a decent shot. He can probably do the pull up stuff. It's actually not surprising that for much of last year he was the worst isolation scorer in the NBA. That doesn't surprise me at all because isolation scoring does require a lot of balance and like that sort of hezzy step back, pull back stuff. He doesn't do that well. It's almost like his head is always behind his body. It's just weird to watch sometimes. But kudos to OG for a great game. He is one of my favorite players on the team. So no one accuse me of throwing shade. I'm just calling it straight. All right, man.
All
Good one.
right.
Good chat. Thank you so much, Chris.
All right. Have a good one.
Have a good night, man. All right. Next up, we got Coach Mo. Coach Mo, how you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
So, I don't know if you watched from the beginning of the game, but the first thing they mentioned was Scotty playing better, being more engaged. They even mentioned he's been having a better plus minus and some weird stat about being in the negatives in plus minus, like something that wasn't flattering. I think 9 of the last 12, he was minus plus minus. I was just like, wow, here we go, right out the gate.
The Scotty propaganda was weird to me
Like out the
during this
gate.
game. Like throughout the game, it was insane. Like, let's be real. If Alvin Williams is calling this game, right? All we're hearing all game is Scotty's got to be more aggressive. He's too good to have 7 points in the game. Like
Yep.
the crappy stuff too. But it's like it's really interesting. Honestly, it kind of freaked me out. I'm not gonna lie. It actually freaked me out that they came out talking really good stuff about him after spending like basically 2 weeks trying to coach him through
Yeah.
through broadcasts.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, one of two things happened. Either they've received like death threats on Twitter from Scotty Barnes fans that are asking them to stop doing this shit, or they caught a call from Masai saying like cut this shit out, you know, or Raptors brass, or they are actually actively open to moving him, and now they're trying to rehab his trade value, which I think I would put the chances of that being at 1%.
Less.
But yeah, it was really interesting to sort of observe that as
And
well. It's
but
such a 180-degree turn. It's like, can you guys fucking pick a middle lane? He's not as good as you're talking about him tonight, and he's not anywhere close to as bad. I mean, he is close to as good as you were talking him up tonight, but it's like this kind of like, it's so bipolar. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Imagine if I came on this stream tonight and I was just like, you know, like Precious Achiuwa is the greatest guy on earth, and then the previous game I was like, trade this bum, send him to the G League. You know what I mean? Like it's so weird. It's like hold on to an opinion for a little bit, you know, maybe a week at least. You know, it's so weird. And it wasn't just Alvin before; it was Jack as well. It was Matt as well. And
yep.
tonight they're like citing all these stats, and I was just like, did you guys pick up a book and learn how to talk about basketball, or did someone call you? Like, what the hell happened here? It was very weird. And if I start seeing it from the media, I'm gonna get really worried. Like if Doug Smith says Scotty Barnes had a great game despite 7 points, I'm gonna freak out. Like that's gonna keep me up at night.
But you mentioned it earlier, and he's the only one with a game that can sacrifice and still be effective of the starting lineup.
Yeah,
Like
for
he's
sure.
the only one that could be a connector. He's the only one that can
Siakam could do it. Siakam could
Siakam
do
can
it.
do it, but just not as well. Like Barnes had like 5 assists in limited minutes in the second half, and they're just quick decisions. He reads and reacts quick. He doesn't need to pound the ball. He's the only one that can play center. He's the only one that can like have limited touches, take limited shots, and impact the game out of the starters. Everyone else, they need shots, they need something. He's the
Yeah,
only
I
one that can
mean,
do it. He's the only one like Jokic the other night. He scored like 5 points in the first half, but he dominated. Like no one in our starting lineup besides Barnes has the capability of doing that. And great players ease into games. They don't need to play Patrick Beverly. Patrick Beverly has to play the way he plays because he's limited talent-wise, skill-wise. He has to do that.
no,
Garbage men
absolutely.
have to play hard or they're useless. You think Durant comes in going gangbusters?
No, he doesn't. He
No, they
always
don't.
lets
Great
the game
players
come to
don't go
him.
in playing gangbusters. It doesn't make sense. OG has to play hard, or else it will be he just can't keep up. He has to play hard. No offense to
Um,
OG, he's a great player. I love him,
yeah.
but he
So
can't ease his way into the game.
here's the thing. G wrote this comment here. That's because Scotty has been aggressive. Don't think they care about stats. It was him being passive. G, I disagree. As Mo just said, they were talking about him before the game. This is after they spent a game trashing him last game and the game before. So unless he, I don't know, played pickup ball with them before the game and they were like, wow, this guy's a dog. There's no reason to start complimenting the guy before the game when he's apparently coming off 2 bad games in a row where he's been so-called disengaged and or doesn't give a shit about basketball. Look, at the end of the day, narratives can be however you want, right? If a guy is passing to his teammates, like, look, that Indiana game, specifically that Indiana game, because it stuck out like a sore because they went aggressive drop against him. If you listen to people who actually understand basketball, like in the first quarter, they were tweeting, Barnes is a genius. He's doing this on purpose. He's doing great. The offense is moving. It's great. But if you listen to the broadcast crew, they were like, why is he not taking the shot? You listen to fans, they're echoing what the broadcast because, quite frankly, more people watch Raptor games than watch Pensar basketball. That's just the reality of the situation. So that's the shit you're going to hear on the street. But if you understand basketball, you understand that Scotty Barnes impacts the game in so many ways, a lot. And it's not just this game. Don't tell me this is the only game he was aggressive. This guy went on a 17 point, what was it, 17 or 16 points in the fourth quarter. No, 19 points in overtime against the Milwaukee Bucks. It was overtime plus fourth quarter from the 6-minute mark all the way to overtime. He scored 19 points. He hadn't scored a single point up until then. And today I read an ESPN article, and does it mention the 19 points that he scored? No. It mentions that up until the end of the fourth, up until the 6:52 mark in the fourth quarter, he had no points. But it doesn't bridge the rest of it. To me, as a writer, as a former sports writer, that is bullshit. That is how you mislead a fan base, because you trust that the fan base is not going to Google that and be like, well, you told me he had 0 points up until this point. How the hell did he end up with 19? He must have had a really huge breakout. My point is, you can present that situation in 2 ways. Number one, how Mo presented it. He let the game come to him. He's getting his teammates involved. Yeah, he could be a little bit more assertive, but let's call greatness for what it is. When his team was down, when his team needed him, he showed up. He was the only guy who could score. He was the only guy who can get it going in overtime. And he scored against two incredible defenders. He took Giannis and Brook Lopez off the bounce. They're both in contention for Rookie of the Year. I'm sorry, but Defensive Player of the Year. So, that was a very impressive performance, but if you only present it as a negative performance, you can spin it however the fuck you want. That's the truth.
Yeah.
I
don't know if it makes us better if he takes shot in the starting lineup, like perimeter shots. I don't necessarily think it makes us better. And this idea that he has to shoot when they do drop coverage, I think what he was doing was actually smarter, where if Brook or Turner are backing off and you just hand the ball over to Fred or OG or Gary and you set them a screen, and now the defender's back in the paint and those guys get wide open mid-range jump shots. I think that's the better play, which is what he was doing. But people that don't know basketball are saying he's wide open, shoot it.
Well, that's because they've watched 3 years of basketball of guys who were just wide open shoot it. You remember that whole Kyle Lowry saying, I want to get Kem paid?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Scotty to do one of the post games and be like, I'm just trying to get Gary paid.
I mean,
because he is. Let's be honest. He is. Like, Scotty is final. Like, here's the funny thing. Like, so someone asked in the comments, like, what do you think has changed with Scotty Barnes? Honestly, I don't know. But if I was guessing, it would be that somebody has told him that there is a plan in place to make this shit stop. That there is a temporary period in which it's going to be chaotic, and at some point it's going to settle down. Scotty Barnes wants to play point guard. Let's be real.
Yeah,
he does. He 100% does. And today, I loved it. He actually, like, there was a play where he looked at Fred, and he had the ball, right? And he looked at Fred, and he looked him off, and he brought the ball up himself. Gary did the same thing too. Gary doesn't bring the ball up that much. No, Gary usually passes off to Scotty or Fred. Today, he saw only Fred, and he was like, fuck this, I'm bringing it up myself. So, okay, sorry, who is writing OG is trash? What is wrong with you? What is going on with your brain, man? Sorry, this is the wrong game. So Tamberlin asks, Rob, are you saying Gary Trent Jr. is definitely gone because of Nurse comments treatment? And if Barnes is the Raps' future and he loves GTJ, then why doesn't he insist Gary stay? Honestly, man, like, I don't know. Look, the Raptors have traded almost all of Scotty's favorite teammates. They traded Svi. He was one of his favorite teammates. They cut Ish Wainwright. He was one of his favorite teammates. They cut Utah. He was one of his favorite teammates. They shipped off Goran Dragic. He was one of his favorite teammates. This team is not doing Scotty Barnes any favors in terms of surrounding him with guys that he actually likes. And quite frankly, all of those guys are pretty much thriving everywhere else, except for Svi. So take that with a grain of salt. It's a very small sample size, but I think there's a certain type of person and a certain type of player that Scotty vibes with. Scotty loved Armani Brooks. That's another guy he really, really got along with. Now he's cool with, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, Christian Coloco, Precious Achiuwa, Gary Trent Jr., Jeff Doughton, Otto Porter Jr., OG Anunoby. Seems to be that's the cabal. That's the clique. Those are the guys. And Christian Coloco, I think if I mentioned. So, those are the guys that he vibes with, and hopefully those are the guys that stay on this team if you're planning to build around them. As for Gary Trent Jr., to the question that Tam asked, I honestly don't think it's going to be in the Raptors' court. I mean, this is a guy who will have a very sizable market for his skills. If he feels like you've disrespected him, I think the thing with Gary and Scotty is, if you really look at how they grew up, like, these are people who actually received love in their lives. These are people who, like, were raised by parents who actually cared about them. However, they cared about them. So they're not going to take shit. Like, they're not going to take you disrespecting them or calling them out in a contract year when you're not calling out your starting point guard. Mm-hmm. And if they spot that bullshit, they're just gonna, like, they're gonna dissent. So, the Raptors' entire structure is, in my opinion, a house of cards. And I'm just glad that you have a rookie, now a sophomore, who is willing to stand up against it. Because trust me, it's not right what's happening. It's not right. What?
It's borderline tyranny. Because
Yeah,
As if I'm Scotty, I'm 21 years old, and I'm getting thrashed unfairly, and it's not even. I'm taking most of the blame, and none of my vets, and I mean vets, the two main guys, the two so-called best players, have never once publicly came to my defense. Why would I fuck? Sorry. Why would I like them? Why would I, cater to them? Because if Lowry were there, he'd stand up for him.
absolutely.
I think Lowry would stand up for him. And shout outs to OG today in his post game. He shouted out the bench. He named a couple of bench guys from what I heard, and they played well, and he gave them their praise. It's like I just don't think Fred and Pascal are leaders.
No, they're not. Like,
They're not
there was
at all.
there was that entire awkward thing with Christian Coloco and Pascal Siakam, and it was nothing. Like, it was absolutely nothing. Like, don't anyone tell me that I'm blowing it out of proportion. It was nothing. Where it was a light hazing, where Christian Coloco was doing an interview, and Scott and Pascal Siakam, sort of like cuts in, and he says, "I'm going to do the interview first. Rookie, get back." And then Christian Coloco, they flash the camera over to him, and he looks really, sad. It's a joke, right? I don't think he's actually sad. But what was interesting is that somebody asked him, like, did that ever happen to you? Did anyone ever interrupt your interview, right? So that they could go first when you were a rookie. And then he goes on and lists all these things that they had to do as rookies, like carry pink backpacks, sing songs, get people coffee, right? You know what's interesting? And then he said that they don't do anything. They didn't have to do any of that. I got to talk to Freddie about that. Like, I don't know who's going to make them do that. And I was just like, that's what hazing is. Every NBA rookie goes through that. Like, talk to anyone who's been a rookie in the NBA. They all have things like that. They're all, like, I remember a story from a friend of mine who played, who was a rookie for, where was he? Charlotte? It was Charlotte, like way back when. And he said that, they would randomly like ask all the rookies to pull out their phones and call their parents and say, like, and read a script, stuff like that. Like, that's funny. And
Yeah.
it's hazing. And I was part of a frat. I've been hazed, I get it, but that's not cruel. It's not passive aggressive. It's not being called out in the media for being a shit player. That stuff crosses the line. If I ever saw a vet doing that, I'm like, you're not a vet. You're not a good vet. So I think that this team, like, the fact that they're not doing that is kind of just weird. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and also from the it seems like Fred and Pascal, they only praise each other.
Hmm.
They only stick up for each other. In the JJ Redick podcast, Fred was
Yeah, he
defending.
defended Pascal's
Yeah,
All-Star candidacy.
and
I mean, like, I'm sorry, like, is Pascal's All-Star candidacy actually up for debate? Of
I know,
course he's
I
an
know,
All-Star. What would
I
you, a
know,
great teammate for coming to bat for Pascal Siakam? Like, are you insane?
but they only
He's
come
not
to
going to be
bat
a
for each other.
starter. Hmm?
They only come back for each other.
Yeah.
That's it. No, none of the young guys, and I don't think there's any bring like you mentioned before. What the vets gave them, what the championship vets taught and gave. I don't think anybody like think back to when Fred was playing the worst basketball a human being can ever play in that Sixer series, right?
G
And
says,
the grace he was given.
right. G says last interview, Fred said the bench was good and Coloco was good. Let's be fair here. G, just in case you haven't figured it out, I'm just going to let this, I'm not trying to be passive aggressive. I'm just trying to tell you that the last two games, Fred VanVleet has been very careful with his media interviews.
Oh yeah. Yep.
There was a particular question that he was asked, which is almost identical to a question he was asked the previous year. Previous year, he said, I can't play. He said something along the lines of, well, I have to go to the bench and the other guys have to carry. Basically, what happened is that I think 2 games ago, he went to the bench a couple of times, and every time he went to the bench, there was a run. Okay. And the other team went on a run. And so he was asked, like, what are you thinking on the bench when you see that yourself going out of the game is resulting in a run? Typically, this, egocentric person would use that opportunity to bash the teammates who were on the court. However, realizing smartly that the previous game, the exact same thing had happened to him, where he was on the court when all the runs happened, he mentioned, you're not going to get me to throw my teammates under the bus. I've been on the other side of it too. It's happened to me as well. It happens. And I was like, congratulations, man. You're learning, because I am literally dissecting every word this guy says. And if he had even remotely hinted at it, I'd be like, and Fred last game. So look, he's very aware. He's
Yep.
very aware that
But it's not genuine.
people have caught on to what he's saying. But if you think that if he's sitting there and he goes out and the other team goes on a 10-point run, if you think that he's not thinking, oh, if I was out there, this wouldn't be happening, you're crazy. Anyways, Mo, thanks a lot for coming on. You have any final thoughts, man?
Yeah, but it's not genuine, because now all eyes are on him, so he has to watch what he's saying very carefully. Like that press conference a couple of days ago after the JJ Redick podcast, and he was struggling,
Mm-hmm.
and his public image was dropping. He said, "Yeah, I'll take the blame for everything." Like
At the end of it, I'll take the blame.
The moment he opened with that, I was like, "Yeah, he knows. He knows he's on the hot seat."
No, I agree completely.
None of this he's saying is genuine. He has to say it to save face and to clean up, backtrack some of the things he's been saying.
Hey man, like when you get called out for this stuff and it starts becoming like a dominant point of conversation, and you can say thank you Pensari basketball for that, or you can say thank you critical thinking for that. I really don't care. I don't need to take credit for it, but I will tell you that I've been pushing this for a while, that people need to pay attention to what this guy's saying, because it's rubbing people the wrong way. And I think, look, if you followed the Raptors through Masai Ujiri's tenure here, when have you ever seen a team that has had as many rumblings of disconnected locker rooms and whatever? This is now 2 of 3 years where Fred VanVleet has been a full-time starter. Is that correct? Or 3 of 4, 2 of 4 years that Fred VanVleet's been a full-time starter. Look, the onus of leadership will fall on whoever's left, right? If Fred and Pascal leave, there will be a new leader. If you bring in LeBron, he will be the new leader. It always gravitates that way. It always does in every dynamic, in every situation, in every room, right? So once you start taking certain guys out of situations, the problems that have been bubbling come to the surface. Fred VanVleet may have been rubbing guys the wrong way for forever. We don't know that. Maybe he was. Maybe he walked in like as a rookie and he was just like, I'm the boss. I'm bet on myself. And maybe some guys didn't like him and some guys did. I have no idea. Maybe some guys were really patient with him. What you cannot argue, however, is that as you structurally take apart that championship core, as guys leave one by one, guys like Kawhi, Norm, Danny Green, Serge Ibaka, guys who were really beloved around the league, around the team, never really heard anything bad about them recently or the last 10 years, Marc Gasol, Kawhi Leonard, Kyle Lowry. You take those guys out one by one, you start pushing these guys up, right? Like even the very notion that when they were asked last year at training camp, about the leadership status, and they blamed Kyle. They said Kyle was here. He cast a really big shadow. We didn't know how to be leaders. It's like, bro, Scotty Barnes doesn't need you guys to leave to be a leader. He's leading his own way. He's leading a group. I think putting an arm around Gary Trent Jr. because he's been called out by this coaching staff or he had a bad game. I think even Scotty Barnes putting his arm around Fred VanVleet after all the drama between them when Fred VanVleet missed that shot, that's leadership to me. So reality is you don't need people to get out of your way to be a leader. If you're a leader, you lead. That's just how it is. Udonis Haslem doesn't need to wait for Jimmy Butler to leave Miami to be a leader. He is a leader in that locker room.
Yeah, I thought that was a weak answer. But this notion that we have championship DNA, the championship DNA left the building.
Yeah,
it's
I agree.
gone. And Fred and Pascal, OG never played, so we can set him aside. He never played in the championship run. He was there. He witnessed it. So did Boucher. But Fred and Pascal didn't have leadership responsibilities at all.
I mean, if you listen to Fred, he would say he did, but
he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think you could go either way on that one, but yes, you're right. I mean, like you could say he was the leader of the bench mob. If you really, really want, if you want to go there.
The championship DNA, the leaders, the guys who did the heavy lifting. Pascal was our second leading scorer, but for anyone to say he was our second best player, he wasn't even our third most important guy. So
that's fair.
The fact that they keep mentioning championship DNA is a bit much to me, because if we actually did have 2 leaders with championship pedigree who played a substantial role in a championship team and had that kind of gravity, I think this season wouldn't be going the way it is.
I mean, we do have two guys who played at least, you can say, a substantial role.
Yeah.
I think on the championship team. I think it's pretty undeniable to say that Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet didn't play a big role. I just think it's different when you lose the balance, right? Like there's like a balance, like it's like a floaty, like you can swim, if you have a floaty, you can swim. You lose the floaty, maybe you drown, like it's
Yeah.
just how it is. Like maybe Fred VanVleet is an incomplete leader. This is such a weird example, but I'm going to give it anyway. Does anyone out there, a WCW fan, NWO fan, WWF fan, does anyone have any notion of that? I feel like that's a pretty. I've heard some people in this audience did used to watch wrestling. Let me know in the comments if this example is going to vibe with you. There was a guy named Vince Russo, right? Yes. So Michael says yes. Okay. So Vince Russo was the creative genius behind the Attitude Era in WWF, right? He was such a instrumental part in the Sean Stevens says Wolfpack baby. Yep, Wolfpack. Yeah, I love it. So when the Monday Night Wars kind of between WCW and NWO kind of fell apart a little bit and started leaning towards the WWF, well, Eric Bischoff and I guess WCW brought in Vince Russo. And Vince Russo was always considered such a creative genius at WWF, but he always had Vince McMahon above him. So what did they do? They gave him full reign. So now, as it has been explained to me by many people who were close to that situation when it happened, this guy was a guy who had 10 ideas every single day. And what he needed was someone to tell him which the 9 bad ideas were so he didn't do them. But when you take the guy out above the guy who has all the creative genius and idea and potential, whatever, you have no filter anymore. So now he does all 10 things. He can't decide because he has no discipline. He doesn't know. And suddenly he ran that company into the ground. They were worthless. Like you have no concept of how little that company sold for. And I think he was there for about a year. So realistically, like, oh my God, so many spammers. It's really difficult to look at a leader when there is a stronger leader in place and just really be able to say, well, how are they leading? How is their leadership style, affecting? So, yeah, I don't know. That's sort of my thought on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Mo, thanks a lot for coming on,
problem.
man. I really appreciate it. Okay. So to anybody who wants to call in, link is in the description. Come on and have a chat. We're at 1 hour and 10 minutes. This is probably going to be a shorter one. It does not feel like a lot of people are super interested in talking today. Oh shit. Sorry. I totally screwed up there. I'm about to block myself. I can't. Sorry. I just posted a link in the comments. I did not mean to post that link. I meant to post a StreamYard link. Blackhawk 2K saying, "Hey, yo, I'm a bad guy." Blackhawk 2K, come on in, man. Like, if you want to talk. I want to quickly, now that we have some time, there are actually no callers waiting. I do want to take a moment to go through some of the Instagram questions, and I think they were super interesting. So let's go into it. So I had asked you guys to send Instagram questions, and these were the questions that you guys asked. So the first question is advice to someone wanting to start a YouTube channel. My 3-pronged answer was research well, be honest and original, and find your own voice. The next question up was, do you feel stupid now saying that the Raptors shouldn't have traded Scotty Barnes for Kevin Durant? And I said, nope. Favorite 5 Raptors currently and favorite 5 all time. Current, Scotty, OG, Koloko, Gary, and Jeff Doughton. All time, Kawhi, Vince, Kyle, DeMar DeRozan, and Scotty Barnes. Next up, people showing you so much love, but how do you deal with all the negativity and people going at you hard? 7-word answer: sleep, eat, pray, love, and drink water. Next up, we have why are the Raptors so bad this year? And don't say Fred and Pascal now. Okay. New CBA looming. Chemistry, leadership, and a lack of ball movement. Okay. How have you grown Pensari basketball so fast? Been following you since 80 subs, which was like 7 months ago. Honestly, long and short, the short answer is I was a basketball writer. I have a stats degree from university. I study the game. I love the game, and I put a lot of that love into this. But I think if I'm being more convoluted with my answer. I think a lot of it has to do with finding an honest voice and finding a way to communicate effectively without rambling, without all the ums and pauses, but also in a way that is authentic. Sometimes I watch people on camera and I can just tell that they're putting on an act for me, and it usually disengages me really quickly. And my girlfriend does not like basketball, and she sometimes watches these live streams, and she'll be like, I'll be like 2 hours in and I'm still watching and I have no idea why I'm watching, but it's so entertaining. And I think that's probably it. I'm not patting myself on the back or anything. I had to work very, very hard to get there because I was very awkward to start, but I think that's probably part of it. Okay, this was probably the most interesting question. When's the video with Scotty's trainer coming out, and what was your biggest takeaway that you can actually share? So to put it out there, I am an editor. So sorry guys, I'm not able to focus on this plus your comments right now. So if you're asking me questions in the comments, I'm not going to be able to. Oh, Sean Stevenson, I guess you're asking that's funny. You're asking the question as well. So I am an editor, and I have a feature film that I have to edit before I can fully edit that. And also I have to show that video to somebody before it airs, which is, not his trainer necessarily, but somebody else as well. So unfortunately, it's possible that it will come out tomorrow early-ish evening if I can plug away all night, and I'm pretty awake right now, and I slept in the afternoon, so I think I could do it. But there is a very strong possibility it'll come out on Thursday. In terms of the biggest takeaway, guys, this is something that I've wanted to share with this community forever because I think it's such a cool thing. So full disclosure, prior to doing that interview, I had messaged Brian and I had said that I don't want to give the media any ammunition. So I don't want to talk too much about why Scotty's struggling. I don't want to bring up I just want to be able to hear that he put in a lot of work in the off season. And he said, we're not ducking anything. We're not ducking anything. You're going to ask all the questions that you want. Nothing's off the table. We're not ducking anything. And I thought that was so crazy to me, that this kid is basically, public enemy number one for the media right now. He's taking so much shit for shit that's not true. And you have his trainer who's like his brother, basically, like such a good dude. And to anyone out there who's like, oh, is he like an NBA caliber trainer? Yes, he is. He has trained other NBA athletes. He is very good at his job. He's amazing. And he is quite popular among basketball community. But to have him, advocate for Scotty that way and to be honest about it. And then at the end of the interview, I don't know if we recorded it, but right at the end when we were parting ways, I just said, can you give a shout out to the Pensari basketball community, because we really we love this guy. Like we support this guy fully. And he said, if Scotty could say anything to you guys, it would be to be fair about his bad games, to call out his bad games. And I was just like flummoxed. Is that the word? Flummoxed, floored. I just thought it was so cool that you have like this one overwhelmingly positive channel about this player that you care about so much, and you're asking them to be even more fair. And I think I've been a lot more fair, but when I heard that from him, I'm like, all right, I can dial up the fairness a little bit. Totally. So I thought that was my biggest takeaway for sure. There's like 100 things that he says in that interview that are super cool, and I can't wait for it to come out, but you guys might have to wait till Thursday. What are the odds that one of the 5 starters get traded before Feb 9th? Pretend you're a betting site. So in order from most likely to least likely, these are 9 Raptors that I could see getting traded. Chris Boucher, Gary Trent Jr., Malachi Flynn, Fred VanVleet, Kem Birch, Otto Porter Jr., Thaddeus Young, Juancho Hernan Gomez, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. So descending order. Okay, you don't regret not trading him, but don't you think the Raptors front office does? Durant plus Siakam. So this was something that was broached in the Mo conversation, which was basically like, we've heard so many rumblings about Masai, and we heard a vague mention of Raptors insiders not happy. And obviously with the way this fan base unfortunately thinks, sometimes you assume Raptors insider means Masai's not happy. I thought about it a lot yesterday. And I got to tell you, there's no player on this team who has more in common with Masai Ujiri than Scotty Barnes. Not in an obvious way. Now, to those of you saying, but he's not African, you're thinking too surface. Don't think surface. Think essence, right? Do you remember a certain passionate general manager getting on stage in front of a ruckus crowd as the Raptors surprised to make the playoffs? And what did he say when he exited the stage? He said, "Fuck Brooklyn." That's something Scotty Barnes would do for sure. There's a passion and it can sometimes come off as immaturity, but it's not. It's passion. It's raw grit and it's truth. And Masai, for whatever reason, has always vibrated with people like that. So I don't think Scotty Barnes is going anywhere. I don't think Masai Ujiri has changed his mind on Scotty Barnes. I think this front office loves him. There's a reason why he was held out of Durant trade talks. There's a reason why they haven't traded future first round picks to build around Siakam. There's a reason why OG was dangled in the offseason despite, being very young. I don't think he's going anywhere. He would have had to do something egregious behind the scenes for them to sour on him, because trust me, his performance this year is not something that they're like, oh my God, he's not who we thought he was. Can OG win Defensive Player of the Year? Yes, but wins will help. Can the Raptors make the playoffs still? What are the odds? I think it's pretty 50-50, to be honest. The schedule is super, super easy, and they're facing a lot of teams that are going to be tanking. Why is Scotty so inconsistent? I posted a picture of Kobe Bryant's January 1998 for his second season, and it's like 12 points, 20 points, 16 points, 17 points, 6 points. It's not the Kobe you saw later. So these things take time, and I'm just asking the fan base to be patient with some of the young guys on this team. Do you think Scotty stopped streaming because the media, or he's just busy with the season? Alicia, if you're here, I don't think Scotty is doing anything because of the media. So no, I don't think it's because of the media. How do you have the courage to share personal stuff on the lives, your friends passing, childhood stuff? Simply put, I just don't know who needs to hear what. When you, when I share, I think we're all, I don't know if you're religious, you're not religious, doesn't really matter. When I say God, I don't mean like a God, like the God. I just mean like God, like as a concept, like whatever you call it. You can call the earth God. I just think we're all children and we were all born that way. So, we're all connected that way. And if I've gone through some stuff of, that's bad or whatever, I think I'm blessed. Like my life is blessed. So I can own the ugly parts too. And if I can bear my scars and, talk about some of the hard times, then maybe some people, get something out of that. That's cool. Favorite point guards of all time: Jason Kidd, Magic Johnson, CP3, Curry, Peyton. That was my holy grail. Why do you think the Raptors are such a bad defensive rebounding team? Complicated answer is when you have a scrambling defense, you put guys in rotations all the time, you switch everything, you play a lot of funky defenses, zones, and you don't play with a dominant center who grabs a ton of rebounds, like a Steven Adams or Rudy Gobert type. You're probably going to be in weird box out situations, right? Like you're not going to have set box out assignments. Sometimes you're going to have Fred VanVleet trying to guard, Steven Adams or Brook Lopez for a rebound, and that's not going to go well for you. Raptors also give up a lot of threes, long shot, long rebound, a lot of offensive rebounds on that. So that's, I think, but in all honesty, if Otto and Precious had been healthy all year, I think that's a completely different equation for the team. If you had to redraft the top 10 picks of 2021, where do Scotty and Suggs go? Curious. Oh man, when will this Scotty and Suggs shit end? Okay, so this is 1 through 10. Scotty Barnes, Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham, Franz Wagner, Jalen Green, Josh Giddey, Alperen Şengün, Herb Jones, Jonathan Kuminga, Trey Murphy III. Honestly, Trey Murphy III, Bones Highland, I would assume you can go one of a million different ways with that 10th pick. I think Suggs probably goes somewhere between 13th and 15th, to be honest. Yeah, I Oak Tree 34. What about Isaiah Thomas for all-time point guard list? I liked him. I just thought I liked him, just not as much as the 5 guys I listed. I'm not saying they're better than him. I'm just saying I like them more. Let's say every Raptor starter hits free agency tomorrow. What are the 5-year contracts that they're worth? So this was really interesting. 538 does a contract value thing, and they released an article. Well, Bleacher Report released an article during the redraft of the 2021 draft, and they assessed what the actual market value on a 5-year contract was for all of these rookies from last year. Now, I do want to caution that this was before this season started. It was, I think, in October or September when this article came out. But Scotty Barnes was the highest value player of that draft class. It wasn't even close. It's not even like remotely close. I think the next highest person was Evan Mobley, and it was like half the money. So Scotty Barnes, according to 538, which for those of you in the know is like one of the best analytics sites on the planet, it was a $207.7 million contract for 5 years. Now that might be a far cry for, the people in the chat saying he's Tristan Thompson with some ball handling, but 538 feels very differently than you, and frankly, so do I. So these are the 5-year contract values for the 5 starters for the Raptors. Fred, $105 million over 5 years. Gary, $125 over 5 years. OG, $175 over 5 years. Scotty, $205 million over 5 years, and Pascal, $235 over 5 years. I think those would be the open going rates for them. It could be up or down like 10, 20 million, but I don't think I'm far off, to be honest. Thanks for the answer, dog. Love your shit. Just asking, not hating. How do you got Scotty over OG? I love OG, but Scotty's got upside, playmaking, versatility. He's probably much, much further along as an offensive player at the same age, even though his shot's not the same. He won Rookie of the Year. There's some cachet to that. He's more durable. He's more marketable, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, being a top 5 pick, guys are right to want to go top 5 because it does always carry a bit of a premium on your next contract. Whether you agree or not, if Markelle Fultz was not a number 1 pick or a former number 1 pick, he doesn't get the contract that he got with the Orlando Magic. So being a high lottery pick, winning Rookie of the Year, these things influence your next contract big time. Because it influences your marketability in terms of how that team can now present you to their fan base. So unless Scotty Barnes falls off a cliff and starts averaging like 2 points per game and 2 rebounds and gets benched or whatever, he just gets fat and doesn't play anymore and the Raptors hate him, he would have to do something pretty disastrous to not get a supermax or like the maximum extension on his next contract. What did the analytics say about Scotty Barnes' future? I know your numbers are appreciated. So I listed out 7 things that I think Scotty needs to get better at before he can be really good. So 31 to 35% on pull-up threes, 34 to 38% on catch and shoot threes, 44 to 51% open mid-range, 40% to 44% in contested mid-range. Blackhawks UK, I'm going to be with you in like 3 minutes, yeah? Okay. 68 to 71% near the basket, improve screen navigation by about 5%, and be about 10% more dialed in and assertive offensively than he is currently. So I think he'll be a superstar if he can do all of that. Do you think the Raptors defense would be better if they were less aggressive on the ball defense? Honestly, the way the Raptors play defense is to win the possessions battle every night because they have 3 very inefficient, I think, scorers for their role. Now, you can consider Pascal Siakam very efficient relative to the starters that he plays with, but he's not Kevin Durant efficient or Luka efficient or Jokic efficient or Jason Tatum efficient. He's less efficient than a lot of the guys that he's often talked about with. And Fred is way less efficient than a lot of the guys he's talked about with. And Gary's less efficient. And the 2 guys in that starting lineup who were supposed to be efficient, which is OG and Scotty, for the most part of this season, they have also been inefficient. So if you are not playing balls out on defense this way, it's a bit of a catch-22. You could argue if you don't have to play this hard on defense, maybe you have more legs for offense. I don't know. But I'm just saying if you continue to play offense this way, this type of defense is your only chance to win games. The middy's dead in the modern NBA, so why Scotty got to shoot mid-range, just work on threes. So I think if he wants to be a superstar, he has to be a threat from everywhere. He has to be a threat left side, right side of the floor, going left, going right, pull back. He needs to be able to have counters. He can't be like Pascal. He needs to be a threat from literally everywhere. And the minute he becomes a threat from 3, suddenly you have to hug him up on the line. I mean, you're going to have to double him in the post. Like, man, the minute you start doubling this guy, all that passing genius you're seeing right now when guys aren't guarding him, it's going to be unlocked even more. This guy might shred you for like 22 assists on some nights. He can do it because he can see right over the defense. It's not easy to double team a 6'9" ball handler. That's why jumbo playmakers are often so sought after in the draft. Like guys like Cade, when Cade came out, he was 6'8". Now he shrunk to about 6'5.5". But that's an inside joke. But the truth is that jumbo playmakers are the rarest of rare in terms of player types that that NBA teams are looking for. Celebrity crush. I love this question. Carrie Hilson, Dua Lipa, Alicia Keys, Rihanna, and Natalie Portman. Probably in that order. Funniest player in the NBA, Robin Lopez. Shout out Robin. Favorite TV shows growing up and any books you recommend. Sorry guys, this there's like a couple of non-basketball questions. My favorite TV shows growing up were Family Matters, Fresh Prince, Smart Guy, Rock, Boy Meets World, Seinfeld, City Guys. I like shows that spoke to my life and experiences and characters that I actually identified with. Favorite, okay, love those. Favorite Fresh Prince, Rock, and Family Matters episodes. Shit, I thought you were super young. My bad. Fresh Prince, Papa's Got a Brand New Excuse. That just broke my heart. How come you don't love me? How come he don't love me, man? That was crazy. Rock, it was Terrence Got His Gun. I lost a lot of friends to gun violence, and that episode was probably the reason that I just never ever wanted to be around guns my whole life. So that was really impressive and cool. And Family Matters, Good Cop, Bad Cop, because it is never too early in your life to learn about the realities of police discrimination. Why do you keep telling people to check out Raptors Republic content when they got so many writers who trash you, bro? True. Here's the thing. I'm not a zero-sum thinker. I don't care if you trash me. If I respect what you're doing, I'm going to tell people to check it out. The goal of Pinsire Basketball was never to be, it was to have good basketball conversations. It was not to be the only basketball conversation in the world. So if Samson or Oren or whoever, if they don't, if someone over there doesn't like me, if their forums are full of trash about me, that's cool. I don't care. Because if they're still doing good work and they're writing good articles and they're writing, insightful stuff about analytics and I'm learning from them, why the hell would I not want to share it? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I just don't think that way. And by the way, just a friendly little shout out. If you go over to Raptors Republic, they have an event, a live event. I told Zarar, who is the founder of Raptors Republic, that I would shout that out for you guys. So they have a live event. It's, you can meet Samson and all the guys that it's hosted by Samson folk actually. So you can meet all the guys that you watch over on Raptors Republic. It's $20. It's at Rivoli. I think you get 5% or 10% off food and a free drink. It's a cool event. You'll probably be able to connect with Raptors. There's at least 3 media people there. Oren Weisfeld will be there. S will be there. So there's a lot of cool people that you probably follow already. And, it's probably a cool event to meet Raptors people. And I told them because, they saw that these live streams are going so well and there's so many people. And I was like, you know what, why don't you get someone to come on from Raptors Republic? They don't want to do that. So, no problem at all. I'll shout them out anyway. So that event. And that is it for the questions. Okay, now we can get to Blackhawk 2K and your GOAT. Oak Tree says, wasn't the lady you had on the other day used to be on Raptors Republic? Yes. And Tamberlin here saying it's a great event. Yes, I'm sure it is. I will not be attending, but I'm sure it is an awesome event and you'll be able to meet a lot of like-minded, hoop people. And I think typically the people that I've met who follow Raptors Republic tend to be a little bit smarter than your average casual fan. So, all right, next up, Blackhawk 2K, man. How are you doing?
Oh, very good. How you doing as well?
I'm good. I adjusted the screen size, so now your vertical kind of looks okay.
All right. I'm not 4 feet tall. All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So great game. As again, we're seeing some consistency. Would love for the defense to be better, but I like the fact that the bench was very productive tonight. They were productive on the previous game, if I remember correctly. I believe we hit over 20 points on the previous game.
Yeah, I mean, they've been productive 2 straight nights, but 2 straight nights, they've been given an opportunity. I mean, Malachi Flynn shot terribly, but he stayed on the court.
But they flowed together pretty well in that sense. So even if he shot terribly, I can live with it because they are getting more connected, and that's what I want to see continue through the next game. I still expect Nick Nurse to make some adjustments because of some things that we saw today that could have gotten a little bit more tighter. So hopefully in the next game The next game is actually very pivotal because we've never won 3 in a row. We've always, the highest we've ever gotten was 2 in a row. So this has been a very struggling year. So I would
It's
love to
such a
see us
sad thing to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, very,
You've
very.
lost 5 straight, but you haven't won 3 straight. Wow, no wonder this season's in the dumps.
It's not Raptors basketball when you
Yeah.
look at it that way. But you know what? Here's hoping that Thursday goes our way, and maybe even on I think it's Saturday or Sunday the next game. Maybe if we're lucky, we get 4 in a row. In that regard,
Is it a home and home with Charlotte?
I believe it's home, yes, and the next game I believe is home as well.
That would make sense. Okay,
But
yeah,
not
because
with
the NBA
Charlotte.
has done that.
Like,
We did that
yeah.
in Miami, right? Like we played
Yes.
Miami and then we played at Miami twice. I think
Right.
the NBA has done that at least once or twice for everyone because they wanted to cut down on travel because of COVID.
Yeah, and I think it kind of helps with ever since we've been hit with COVID and as you said with the travel, it does kind of work in their favor. I mean, yeah, they can practice a little bit. It's I like to call them consecutive games because some people get confused and say back to back, but it's not really back to back. It's consecutive games.
No, absolutely. I think it's sort of a delicate balance because some people are saying no, stop wishing for wins. There's no point. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know we're going to hear about that, but they need to just chill out. We have a long way to the end of the season, and it's just they're thinking so much of getting a high pick. There's no guarantee that whoever we get as a pick is going to be very productive the following year. But what you do need to look at is there are players that need to get very well connected in the way that they play.
Right.
Their futures are just as important as the one or two players that you're hoping to come in after the draft. Why would we want to shaft these players just for a new rookie? It does not make sense. It does not make sense to do that.
It depends on which rookie, man. It depends on which rookie.
Even if you like that rookie, I don't want to trash 12 other players.
It's not trashing. You're not trashing.
Yeah,
I think there's a delicate balance here, right? So on one side we have pro tank, right, and then on the other side we have pro playoffs. Like give Freddie.
Give me a third one as well. People
exactly, and the third one is where I'm at, which is pro week by week.
Yeah.
Okay, week by week approach says this. Okay, you have a lot of assets on this team that need to be moved. 100% they need to be moved. Gary needs to be moved. I think Boucher probably needs to be moved. I think Otto may need to be moved if a team would decline, the physical because he's out for the year or whatever. I don't even know if you can trade him. I think
they were able to trade Danny for when he was on Philly, right? And
that's true.
Yeah.
So personally, I would love for Otto to stick around, that he would pick up his player option, come back next year because I think he's a hell of a player. But nevertheless, Malachi, Kem, none of these guys have a definitive future here. None of them have a definitive use on this team. Then there's the elephant in the room, which is the big one, which is the big dominant of all, which is Fred VanVleet. You have a guy who has fancied himself to be the point guard of the future. I watched back the interview that he gave with JJ Redick 2 years ago or 3 years ago when he was up for free agency the second time. So not the last one. He's been on JJ Redick. I think it was one of the first episodes of JJ Redick's podcast. And I watched that back and he talked about, sharing the point guard duties with Kyle, but how he dreamed one day of being in charge. Like he dreamed of being the leader, being the sole point guard of his team.
And here he is.
And here he is. But, big problem. The Raptors drafted a point guard last year. And they've been telling everyone that he's a power forward, a center, a small forward, a shooting guard. But when Fred VanVleet doesn't play, he always starts at point. Every game Fred has missed, Scotty has started at point. They understand that Scotty wants to play point. I think Scotty turned down a lot of Division I offers to go to Florida State because they let him play at point. And it's how he sees himself. Scotty played power forward for Montverde. I remember that. But he also played point guard in EYBL. And he averaged a triple-double. And I don't know if you're familiar with EYBL and AAU circuits.
No. But can I add something to that?
Sure. Go ahead.
There. Okay. Sure. Scotty wants to be point, but also remain a starter. Because he could be the backup point guard, right? And
Yeah.
there's a way even still to do it as a starter because
How can you back up a guy who plays 38 minutes a night?
you cut down his minutes. We did.
He won't cut down his minutes, man,
Well, his minutes were cut down today. Look at
because
the
he
game.
was shooting terribly.
Well, whichever way it was, we got him down to. I think he was the 31 minutes. The highest guy was Pascal, I think, at 35. The minutes were pretty well maintained today. It can happen. There's ways to make it happen. Like when he comes back in, instead of doing point, he's doing the shooting guard. But if you can pull Gary out early, you can pull out Scotty out early and have Scotty come back in as a point guard. But instead, we had Malachi come in as the point guard. It's a backup point guard. So there's a ways to if you want him to be a point guard, there's ways that the coach can cater to that. It's just the coach has to make it happen, right? If that's what the coach wants in that regards there. I still like the game. One thing that I saw that I was like, okay, the coach should have saw that and made a correction immediately, which is there was a point in the game where you could see Pascal was tired. And to the point that Pascal, even when he got the ball, when Mackay, he had to wave it up and say, no, I don't want it there. The coach should have seen that he kept Pascal out there too long and pull him in. That would have been good for Pascal. Then we wouldn't have saw that one little moment there where it just the possession didn't look good, and he didn't look good as well. He looked exhausted. So I'm on the coach for that. I want the coach to spot these things because it's a good way to manage the minute, and it's a good way to make sure if the coach is talking about the team has to have energy. Well, don't play your players to exhaustion. Cycle in people who have energy in order to keep that energy up.
But coach is also managing, contractual expectations, personal accolades, etc. Because it's not uncommon for NBA coaches to go up to their star players or somebody, and just say, hey, I'm going to get you an all-star bid this year, or I'm going to play you to defensive player of the year. Also, by the way, there was a Freddie backstage who looked an awful lot like Fred VanVleet, and it was freaking me the hell out. He's gone now. He was wearing a jersey too. That's weird. If Fred VanVleet ever comes on this show, please know that I'm going to lose my mind. Geez. I have a question for you. Are you a bit of a legend around the forums world? I've seen people being like the legend himself, Blackhawk 2K. Is there something to that? You've been around for a while. I'm just kind of curious.
Well, no. I love basketball, so I guess my kids are even making fun that I'm on your show.
Why? They hate me, don't they?
No, they're surprised that I always doing this. I like following basketball and commenting in the chat session. So they are let's just say they are hazing me with the fact that they got me on YouTube or so that's the way it goes.
It's so cool, man, because usually we have these regulars, we have you, we have Larry, we have FA, we have Coach Mo, we have all these people, right? And in a really weird way, if you didn't know that this was just a random call-in show, you would just assume that this was a mock ESPN, and you guys are just people who are part of this channel. And that's what's kind of cool to me, because it's sometimes I watch YouTube and I watch a YouTuber and it becomes all about them, their opinions, whatever. And I think that's pretty boring, to be honest. I think it's pretty boring. And this place is kind of cool because you hear from all these different people and they're so disconnected. I didn't hire anybody. You're not my friends. No offense. Nobody's my friend here necessarily. I mean, in a way, you're all my friends because we talk, but you know what I mean? We don't know each other in real life. So I think it's just a very weird and cool dynamic. And I'm happy that you come on, man. It's cool.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say it's a weird. I think basically you're
weird good, not weird bad.
Well, in the sense of that, but really and truly, you are writing the technology. You're making the best of it. In that sense, how do I say this? You're not part of the establishment. You're using the technology and you've made yourself something automatically without having to join Sportsnet or TSN or whatever it is, right? You don't have to join First Take or whatever those other shows are. You basically take charge and make your own
They're my
show. And
they're my sworn enemies in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. Like I want them to be better. So like
Well,
I want to show them
actually,
that honesty can work. Like I want to show them that hey, you can have
yeah,
a positive or negative opinion
yeah,
about a player, and as long as it's honest, people are gonna ride with you. I mean,
yeah,
obviously, if they read Twitter comments about me, they're gonna be like, no, this shit doesn't work. But I mean, they can
yeah,
just watch this channel grow and grow and grow. So yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Anyway, man, thanks a lot for coming on. I really appreciate it. As always, love our chats. And have a good night, man.
All right. Have a
Cheers.
good night.
Bye.
Cheers.
See ya.
Bye.
Next up, we got your goat. Your goat. What's up?
Yo, what's good, man? How you been, bro?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Not so well. I mean, the 76ers put up 150 points on us, so I'm not the best right
On the
now.
Pistons?
Yeah. Yeah, but so you guys got a good victory. I'm happy for you guys, but I do
Why
have
are you happy for us? We have half our fan base that just that is literally on like on the edge right now because we're really thinking about tanking and this team is behind us in the standings and we have to catch them. Are
Yeah.
are you seeing a playoff? Oh wow. We got Freddie back. Freddie, stay put there. I don't know if you're actually Fred VanVleet. I don't think you are.
Imagine
Not Fred
if that's
VanVleet.
Fred VanVleet. Imagine.
Yo, nod your head if you're actually Fred. Or if you just no. He's saying no. Okay, thank God.
Imagine that.
That would be funny.
Well, in my opinion, if your team is, I'm not sure if you guys can make a playoff run. Maybe you guys can be a play-in team. I just
Yo, play in for what? Do I need to play Masai Ujiri telling you play in for what? We're not like that type of franchise, man. We're not going to be
yeah.
a play-in team. We don't want to be a play-in team,
Yeah,
right?
I
At the end of the
get
day.
that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's hard. I mean, it depends on if you guys want to tank. It's kind of hard for me. What you guys need to do is definitely trade Fred VanVleet. I've been saying that for a long time. But I mean, at some point you do have to think about tanking, just like the Pistons. I mean, we were in a position where we were seventh, this and that, and we're like, you know what, this enough is enough. We have to tank.
I'm not trying to be rude, but like this is where we are as a fan base. We are now getting advice on how to be more like the Pistons.
Oh, okay. You know what?
I hate this. I hate every second of this, man. Raptor fans are so cocky on Twitter and on Real GM, and basically just, I mean, let's be real. Like Boston fans, New York fans, Toronto fans are freaking obnoxious to other fan bases. And this season has been such a aha, fuck you guys moment for all these other fan bases to laugh at us. I'm not really loving it. I'm not like appreciating it, but I do believe in the vision.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't make fun of other teams because my team is the worst team in the NBA. So I just like I'd be quiet.
Are you here to make us feel better?
Maybe I don't know.
This is true. This is true.
But
That's true.
I have a question for you, and it is a kind of historic question. So, what's the biggest mistake you think your Raptors team has ever done
Biggest mistake?
in
The Raptors
yeah.
history. Trading Vince Carter for Eric Williams, Aaron Williams, and whatever bullshit they got, and Alonzo Mourning who didn't show up. That would be the biggest mistake in franchise history. It set us back about 6 years. Straight up.
Mine definitely has to be for my team is drafting Darko Milicic instead of drafting either Carmelo Anthony or Chris Bosh. In my opinion, Chris Bosh would have been way better because I don't think Carmelo Anthony would have fit with Larry Brown. I think if we look at the Olympic, what year
My
was
sister knows Darko Milicic really well, and
Really?
I one day I will share many stories about what went on in Detroit. But I will tell you that I don't like. Definitely, you guys drafted the wrong guy. He wasn't as good as your scouting department thought he was, but he was also in like the worst possible situation for himself, man. Detroit with that team, just not a good fit for him. I wish he'd gone somewhere else. I think he could have been a serviceable starter in the NBA for a long time. He had a lot of emotional issues, homesickness issues, temper issues,
Yeah.
massive temper issues. Just
That's
one
why
of-
he went on MMA, man. He had that temper issues. He went to MMA and started beating.
not
people
everyone
up.
who fights MMA has got temper issues, but
Yeah,
I
but-
will agree with you. He's got a lot of frustration. Anyway, you have a final point here, man?
Well, my final point is that actually we gave him a chance, but after we evaluated him, I think we went after Rashid and that's why Darko Milicic.
You already had Rashid when you went. Well, actually, no, that's true.
No.
You traded for Rashid midseason. That's true.
Yeah,
Rasheed Wallace, one of my favorite players all
Yeah,
time.
mine
Prob-
too.
Yeah, really. Back to the Portland days. I loved Rashid. Honestly, people had the Lakers in 2K. When they would pick a 2K team, it would always be the
Uh-huh.
Lakers, or they pick Iverson and the Sixers. I would always pick the Portland Trailblazers.
Oh,
Always.
that's cool.
Or the Raptors.
I would pick the Detroit Pistons, where they were like the
Stackhouse.
13th seed, bro. When we were horrible in like 2K18, something like that, I would pick the Pistons, and I would beat people. That's the thing. They would have
Yeah.
the Lakers and everything, and I would like destroy them with the Pistons because I knew how to play them in 2K. That
Nice.
was fun. But yeah, my final point, man, is you guys had a good victory. Although your team, your fan base is kind of on the fence, either to tank or this and that. But listen, as a Pistons fan, I wish you guys
Bro,
well.
we
I
gave up
generally do.
55% from the field to one of the worst teams in
I
the
know.
NBA.
Yeah.
It's a little bit hard to be optimistic. We're trying to keep it upbeat, but you're like on Prozac here, man.
Hey, just think as a Raptors fan. Hey, are you guys like the Pistons and the 15th seed, like worst team in the NBA? No,
Dude,
So
you have a
be-
chance at Wembanyama, man. You actually have a legitimate chance at Wembanyama or Scoot. And honestly, knowing you guys, you're probably gonna draft Scoot over Wembanyama somehow, so you can stack another guard into that backcourt. Anyway, man, thanks a lot,
chill,
man.
bro, chill. All right, man. Talk to you
Peace.
later, man.
Have a good
talk.
one. Bye.
You too.
All right. Next up, we have Freddie, the
Hey, how's it
host.
going, man?
I'm good. How are you? Yo, I saw you in the back. You wearing a Raptors jersey.
Hey, you know
And-
what's funny? I was gonna tell you this story. I'm actually from Los Angeles. I'm currently in Los Angeles right now.
Okay, that's funny. Can someone tell me in the chat? He kind of looks like Fred VanVleet, right? A little bit. I mean, there's
Yeah, okay, yeah, because a lot of people sometimes call me Fred because I was born and raised in LA, but never liked the Lakers or Clippers. Never felt the hype, so the Raptors were just like the team that I liked. The reason I chose the Raptors is the diversity in the fan base. Even though our fan base, like you said earlier, is not going well right now, but
Mhm.
I'm happy we won today though. But our defense is just really really mixed up right now. I don't know what to say. 120 points to the Hornets, like that's insane. But I don't know. I mean, I think I'm kind of like in the middle. I kind of want to tank, but at the same time, I want to win because I know a lot of Laker fans in LA, and they always roast me. I'm like, these guys should not talk though, because you have LeBron and AD, and you guys are doing bad. So yeah, but realistically, I think we should just see how we do on Thursday. We lose Thursday, then I think we should tank. But I don't know. It's kind of tough because a lot of teams are tanking this year, which is really funny. Like, it's really
I mean,
interesting.
it's they should be tanking. It's like what do you like? There's so much to gain here, like so much. People have no concept of it, right? Like
Yeah.
the bottom two guys are unquestionably, in my opinion, franchise players. So if you finish bottom two, that's like this is like 2003. I don't want to say there's as many guys as there were in 2003. I don't know who else will emerge into that group, but if you start getting like a third guy emerging as a franchise changer at the top three, a team that lands one of those picks is basically getting, I want to say about $500 million worth of value. So roughly, if you get the top guy, you're getting at least half. You maybe getting like $750 million of value for being bad for one season. If you were ever going to be bad for one season, honestly, if I ran a team, I hate to say it, I would literally put myself running point guard on the team so we could lose every single game, and I would go 0 for 82 and just pray to God that I got it. Like honestly, like I wouldn't even be shy
would've
about
liked
it.
Victor, yeah, but I can't say his last name. I keep forgetting it, but I would like to
Wembanyama?
get Victor though a lot because we do need size, and we have no size, honestly.
Are you talking about as a Lakers fan?
No, Raptors.
As a Raptors fan. I mean, we have size. I think Victor Wembanyama would fit really well. I think Scoot would fit really well. I think
I think those
I
two
think
picks
like
would be good.
quite frankly, I think like there's 7 or 8 guys in the top 10, and I'm pretty sure that Masai and Bobby have noticed that would fit us really well. And knowing the Raptors and the culture and the scouting, I'm pretty sure we get someone at 8 who's
Yeah.
probably in a redraft going to go top 5. So either way, it's a young asset. You have control of it for 7 years. You're not a team where, free agents usually come. There's only 2 ways to get better, guys. It's the draft and it's through trades. That's it.
That's
so
it.
right now we're entering probably one of the most pivotal months in Raptor history because there's all these guys who are a huge part of our team right now that that are like they're potentially going to be leaving very soon and or are disgruntled and or contributing to winning too much. So you have a guy like Gary Trent Jr., you have a guy like Fred VanVleet, probably both need to be traded and or at least one of them needs to be traded. You probably need to get some future assets back. And who knows where you are in the offseason. Maybe in the offseason you explore Pascal Siakam trade packages. Who knows? You know, or you get Victor Wembanyama and suddenly you got Scotty, Wembanyama, Pascal, and OG and somebody. And that's just like you would be the most fun team in NBA history to watch. Like one of the most fun teams in NBA history. I'm not kidding. Like, I'm not even straight up that like that lineup is basically missing like one excellent shooter, and Wembanyama is a good shooter. So it's like, you know,
he can spread the floor too. So yeah,
like the potential upside here is so enormous. If it was possible to make the second round and or third round, then I would say go for it. You have a lot of young guys, they're competitive guys, they're in a contract year. Just let them go for it. Teacher Mike saying Delano, I don't see it personally, man. Like I think he's going to be a backup next year. But if the upside is first round exit, I'm not for it, man. I already been to the first round. We went there last year.
We both have been to the first round. We've been seeing so much first round losses. Yeah, it's pretty tough. So I don't want to see another one of those. So.
I mean, let me ask you a question. You watch the Lakers a lot?
I'm a Raptor fan, but I watch the Lakers sometimes, but I don't really feel the hype. I think they get too much hype in LA, to be honest. The most underrated team in LA is the Clippers, for sure. From my experience.
Oh, you like the Clippers?
No, my mom's a Clipper fan. I'm a Raptors fan, actually.
How did you become a Raptors fan? This is so fascinating to me.
I know, it's really funny. I think the reason I became a Raptor fan was DeMar DeRozan, low key. I'm not gonna lie.
So you're wearing a Depot jersey. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Toronto people, can we say hi to Freddie? Is your name Freddie? Your actual name is Freddie?
Yeah, that's my
actual name is Freddie. Yeah. Okay, can we say hi to Freddie from Toronto to LA? It's pretty cool. Like
I was born in LA. I was born in LA. I never lived.
No, I'm saying from Toronto, from us to you. Say hello.
Okay. My bad.
Yeah, and ironically, you know, Teacher Mike brings up a very good point that DeMar is an LA guy. Are you from Compton?
No, I'm from close to downtown, actually, 10 minutes away from downtown Los Angeles.
Sweet.
Yeah. I don't live too far from the Staples Center, actually. Well, they call it Crypto.com Arena now, but I still call it Staples.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, this season has been very bumpy, but like the way you said that. I mean, we should go for it. I mean, even Kevin O'Connor said the Raptors should tank. I mean, I wouldn't mind that at all. That would be a really fun team. I mean, Victor, Siakam, Barnes, like the defense would be so deadly if we just get Victor. Like that would be so good, man.
It would. And honestly, like the two biggest needs for this team: dynamic off guard / on guard, which is Scoot. Right, dynamic two-way. Well, I mean, he has two-way potential. He hasn't played great defense this year, but he's capable, very athletic, totally capable. I think he and Scotty could play off each other really well in the backcourt, and you know, size and a true center, shot blocking, rim protection, everything we're hoping. Can you imagine Victor Wembanyama and Christian Koloko next year manning the middle? Oh my God, teams would be stunted at the rim. And, you know, like to people who think that Evan Mobley is worth a lot, Victor Wembanyama is like Evan Mobley on like steroids. Like it's everything that everything that you think about Evan Mobley. And I love Evan Mobley. I think he's an amazing player. Wembanyama is that plus. And I know it's sometimes a little bit irresponsible to talk about, you know, players who frankly haven't played in the NBA. How do we know they're going to be good? But, you know, we do trust scouting. And when scouts tell you this is like the best player since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or LeBron James or whatever, like you have to trust it, you know, to some extent. Like you have to be able to, like I just think.
Yeah. Most definitely. Like this season, I've been impressed with Siakam. He's been very consistent. Fred VanVleet is really worrisome because everybody's been making drama about, oh my God, he unfollowed everyone on Instagram. Like, honestly, I didn't really fall for that. I was like, that's just drama, unnecessary drama. I mean, that's his choice, you know, that's his social media account. So, I mean, we'll see. I know Fred VanVleet wants a big contract, but I don't even not even sure if he deserves it because, I mean, this season he's been like struggling. I think he was 24% from downtown at one point. So it's like.
No, he was never 24%. He was, however, 32% for quite some time. Okay. And he might still be there. I don't know off the top of my head.
But lately he's been kind of bouncing back a little, but hopefully it stays consistent though. That's all I hope, you know. And I mean, we do need size. I mean, I like Christian Koloko.
I mean, he just shot 3 for 10. He was 1 for 8 for most of the game, and he wasn't really seeing the floor very well tonight.
Yeah, that's what worries
me. I mean, he made a couple of really good passes, not gonna lie. Like he did have one no, he had more than a couple good passes. He had like 3 or 4 really good passes tonight. So credit where credit is due. And, because I am I'm apparently a Fred hater, I'm going to put that credit right at the 1 hour and 58 minute of this chat instead of in the front where people would have actually seen it. But truth be told, like, yeah, like I'm just ready to have answers because, like one of the things that freaks people out the most is not knowing, is uncertainty. Like human beings
Yeah,
are wired
which
for
is
like, well, I
understandable.
want some certainty, right?
Yeah,
And just kind of knowing that like, all these guys are being shopped. Are we trying to win? Are we trying to lose? Is this Scotty's team? Is this Pascal's team going forward? Are we gonna like, trade for someone to help us, or are we gonna trade people who are helping us for picks? It's kind of like a lot of uncertainty, and it's making people go crazy here, to be honest. Like myself included, a little bit prior to today.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah. Any final notes, man?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, it's funny. I'm from LA originally. But yeah, I have a podcast actually, legit. I have an NBA podcast. Like, it's called the Fred NBA Show. I recommend it. It's on SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Yeah, like I talk about NBA and the updates and like the latest things that is going on. And hopefully, yeah, hey,
How long
you
have you
look like
been
a
doing
great
it?
host, man. You look like a great host. I'm down to invite you one day for sure, man.
I mean, sure. Well, you tell me what you want to talk about, and if you're straight up and if you're trying to talk like real hoops, I'll definitely come on. How long have you been doing it?
This podcast, I've been doing this since 2020. Like during the pandemic. Yeah.
Nice, congratulations, man. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you
So,
for coming on. I really appreciate it,
yeah.
and thanks for giving us from the vibes from the West Coast. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. Hopefully we'll collab soon, man.
Yeah, see you, man.
All
Bye.
right, see ya.
All right, all right, all right. Okay, we're at the 2 hour mark. I have really, let's see, do we have the video loaded up? If we don't, you'll have to give me a minute so that I can pull up the video. But, okay. And up next, we have Nick Nurse.
Yeah, well, obviously it was a bit of a roller coaster game, right? We got off to a great start. Like you said at the half, they had a big run there with about the last 7 minutes of the half. A lot of what you said, they got out in transition. They got on the glass a little bit too much for us. And then we kind of got all that stuff under control in the second half. I thought it was a little bit unfortunate.
I have just realized that this is from the previous game. That's a gaff. That's a gaff. My bad, guys. I was like, why is he so downbeat? They just won. Okay. We're gonna put more media from the previous game. Sorry guys. Hang on one sec. We're gonna put this up. I'm going to grab a drink of water. We're at the 2 hour mark. I apologize for my, a certain person said that it's very difficult to do these lives when you're doing literally everything. You're managing comments, you're moderating, you're pulling up videos, you're talking to guests, you're pulling guests on, you're filtering people out, you're kicking people out. And man, he's right. But I do enjoy it, and I promise that we will have fun time, like listening to Nick Nurse or Fred VanVleet or whoever talked to the media today, and just kind of closing the show out. Okay, so give me, I want to say about 3-4 minutes. All right, see you back.
Amazing game.
All right, we are ready. And first up, okay, let me know in the chat, who do you want to start with? Because we got Fred, we got Nick, we got OG. Whoever answers first is getting their wish. Nice one, Mane. How long are you streaming till? We're gonna say like 20 more minutes tops, unless something really egregious is said. Everyone's saying OG. We're gonna go with OG.
You know, you guys had a lot of offensive production overall. What was the mentality kind of coming into this one, and how were you guys able to execute?
We knew they like to play in transition. We knew they play really fast, and they're really talented. So just try to force some difficult shots and just try to get stops and run out ourselves.
How impressed were you with, of course, like, you know, the contributions from the bench today? You know, Boucher and Precious both had some solid, both defensive and offensive contributions.
I think, yeah, they played great. I think Juancho, Malachi, Christian, they played great too. So, yeah, doing what they're capable of. They're great players, so I'm not surprised.
How do you encourage like that level of consistency from your teammates? How do you like make sure that they can repeat that again?
I don't, like, it's just, once they do it once, they can do it again. So that's how I feel. So I always just try to make sure they know that, and they do know that. They know they're capable of, so.
And of course, everybody knows you as a great defender, but when you have nights like these, when you're hitting the three, how important is that for you to showcase your shot too?
Oh, yeah, I just try to hunt threes. I know I'm a great shooter, so I'm just going to keep shooting them.
All right. I mean, nothing controversial, but that's what you get with a wholesome dude like OG Anunoby. Love the shout out to the bench, calling out those individual guys, but not in a negative way, in a positive way. And they do deserve credit. I know Malachi Flynn did not shoot well tonight. While I was tweeting tonight, I realized that he felt a lot better. He did miss some open passes. Yes, he's not playing great, but I think there were good moments with him as well. But Koloko, now this is like a string of good performances for him, and Precious Achiuwa really just Started out really shaky there for that first possession, but really settled down and I think played a pretty complete game. All right, new comments. Okay, next up. Are we going with Federico or are we going with Nick? Please say Nick, because I think I already listened to 1 minute of Fred's interview and it's gold. Am I hearing? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Is my chat not refreshing? Are you guys going with Nick or Fred? Should I just play them both at the same time? See if they both say the same thing? Okay, we're not. Okay, we got Nick.
Because you had a season high 32 assists as well. What do you think of the ball movement on offense most of the night?
Yeah, it was good. I think that we've tried to get some guys more aggressive as far as the way teams are playing. Some of the things that we're doing, the schemes that they're playing against us, and I think we came out. Obviously just taking the open ones, and I think we created a lot in transition as well. Just kick out shots that were good ones. So it was pretty good. I'm very happy with making threes and assists and putting points on the scoreboard. Obviously, is good to see.
What made you think that Achiuwa, Boucher, and Toronto would work? And why do you seem to play zone 95% of the time with them three of them?
Well, I'm just trying to come up with a solution after we had such a rough stretch there with guys off the bench, right? And tried enough combinations and all kinds of stuff that we just, I just was trying to come up with a solution to give those guys, a chance to play and give the other guys a chance to regroup and have, some juice left at the end. And that was just a kind of an idea, and we started practicing it to let them go back to zone. We're trying to press a little bit after free throws and stuff, like a three-quarter court press and back to zone. Again, just to help their defensive transition, and make it something a little different in the game, right? And we've kind of given them a smaller package of plays to kind of run over and over on offense as well, and they've been working on those, so just to give them some organization down there too. We'll see how it goes. I mean, obviously it's been pretty good, the couple games. I'm not sure what the tally was tonight, but it seems like it was very much so on the positive side for both stints, right? I mean, it wasn't so much one way or the other, and that's probably a success too, right? That it just kind of holds some ground there.
You were hoping to get Precious one of those extended runs, and got off to a bit of a shaky start in the second quarter, but what did you like best about the way that he was able to kind of turn things around?
Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, like, it was shaky, right? But it was aggressive shaky, probably overly aggressive. It's such a good thing that it turned into a good stint, right? That you can let him play through a couple of not maybe great decisions, a couple mistakes here and there, and it didn't warrant that I had to make a major shift, and then he got going, and he needs some of those extended things, and just like everybody, he's going to make mistakes, and it's nice to let him play through some and show what he can do.
You talked about getting them out to both of those guys up to 20 minutes in the perfect world. Is Precious there yet? Like, is he at the point yet where he can get that, or is he still
getting closer? Yeah, getting closer. Again, I'm not sure how long this experiment's going to work with what I'm doing as far as how I'm playing the bench and stuff. I would imagine that's going to have to get adjusted for those guys to do that, but we'll see. But yeah, I think he had that long stretch of maybe, but I think it was at like 7, and I thought he looked like he was maybe at his limit, just conditioning wise. But there was a timeout. And I asked him, and he said, "Man, I'm good." So I it was kind of time to make the move, but wanted to give him a couple more minutes. Obviously, he was playing well too. We always try to say if you come off the bench and you're having a good stint, that thing could last for as long as you can conditioning-wise handle it.
Last season, Precious started a little slower to the year. By the end, he was just absolutely foundational. And then even in individual games, he can start a little shaky, and then by the middle of the game, he's tossing in 3 threes. Why is it that he of all people, over a long or a short period, can really go from 0 to 100?
Well, I think he's relatively a young player and inexperienced, right? So he's still in that phase of very high highs and low. He's just up and down of not having a ton of minutes on the floor. That'd be my explanation. Yeah, still pretty young as far as court time for sure.
When he is at his best, stopping the rim and driving in threes, does he do something that you kind of don't really get anywhere else on the team?
Well, again, I think what he can do when he's kind of got his motor running or revved up or whatever is he can be a force at both ends at the basket. All right, we know he can pop out and make the occasional three or rhythm three or take those, and he's got pretty good shooting mechanics and all that stuff. But his force and athleticism at the rim at both ends becomes something we don't really have, right?
Taking off of that, though, you're still experimenting with lineups, especially off the bench. But what's with the dynamic between Boucher and Precious always being so strong when the two of them play together?
Well, again, you're right. That crew, usually it was, last year, I can't remember, maybe it was Thad or something. Those guys seem to generate a lot of our offensive rebounding energy. Right, and then it kind of spreads. Like tonight was a great offensive rebounding night for us, and I know the numbers bear it out, but just the feel of it really bear. I mean, like their defense, it was hard for them to get a defensive rebound. Even when they got it, like we were, almost there, challenge or almost tipping it or whatever. And that, again, is something else that Precious brings, right? And Chris, when they just kind of feed off each other, and they're both at the glass. And now you sprinkle in Christian tipping a few out of there too, probably as the third guy. It just, I don't know, in that stint, it seems to rev up everybody on, the guys on the bench watching it as well. So it's good that they can provide that.
When it comes to Scotty Barnes, they didn't play as deep on him this game. But
Pardon me?
When it comes to Scotty Barnes,
I'm sorry.
That's cool. They didn't play as deep on him this game as they have in past games. And his shot making from the three-point line and all that kind of stuff hasn't ramped up or anything, but he's become more effective at moving guys through the offense. What are you seeing from him?
Well, I think just a little more decisive, you know what I mean? Not going from one side to the other, not staying on the same side with his actions, just having a better idea that he's going to get off at a little, quicker decisions. And that's really like something we've been talking about. We don't it's time to make a play. It's take the shot, it's drive it to the rim, or it's get it to the next action. It's not dribble it, in the same spot, or hold it in the same spot and think and look, and just take the next action to keep it going. And that's probably what we did good tonight. I mean, it was an emphasis to not try to strike right away, because they're pretty good defensively and right away. And then, you just got to kind of get it to the next side or to the next action, and then things start to open up. I thought we did a good job of hitting the paint and kicking out, but I think there's even improvement there we could do.
Do you think there's any room to continue to build up the offense a little bit more from where Scotty's operating right now?
Yeah, there is. I think there is some room to play through them and get some more cutting and things like that going, yeah.
Rozier and LaMelo, they both filled up the stat line. What do you feel like your team was able to do defensively to sort of weather that storm from the backcourt duo?
Well, not much. Outscored them, really. They're super explosive. I think we just did enough there in the last, 6 minutes. I'm not exactly sure, but we just made them miss enough. I know at one time we had 6 consecutive stops, and that's kind of what, in the guts of the game. They were just a little harder shots. They just missed them, missed them, and we were able to hold them to 1. But, we were talking about this is one of those games where they do play at a pace where, the scoreboard's going to be going, right? And when can we put together a string of consecutive stops will make the difference in the game, and that really was what happened.
You spoke before the game about how your team's attitude has been pretty strong throughout the past few weeks. And Gary Trent Jr., he's a guy who's been, on the bench, and then he's, been back in the starting lineup. And for the past little bit, he's been back in the starting lineup. What can you say about his attitude in particular, just throughout the season, throughout those, ups and downs and different combinations? Yeah,
he's been as professional as he can be all the way through about all of it. He's, even when, I go to talk to him, his attitude is, man, I'm going to work and do my job, and whatever you need, that's what, if you want me to start, whatever it is, like he's been right on top of it.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me? Alanda, I don't have a Cash App, so sorry about that. Okay, thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments. Like, what the hell? Okay, first of all the players on this team who I could accuse of dribbling the ball in one place, not moving it off enough, not making a quick enough decision, I think Scotty Barnes is probably the least. Scotty, Thad. I think those are probably the 2 guys that sort of like dribble aimlessly for no reason the least. I see Scotty do it like once or twice a game, but I mean, there are guys who do it every single possession. What are we talking about here? I'm sorry. I don't agree with that. That's, and this idea of the bench, like the way he's talking about Precious, I agree with Tamberlin. Like I feel like listening to him talk about what just happened makes me feel like I watched a different game than he watched. And that's freaking me out right now because I know he's not stupid. He's a really smart person. So it's, I don't understand it. Precious Achiuwa does bring some stuff to your team. I don't understand how a coach does not mention that he's by far your best rebounder. He's twice as good as your next best rebounder, just to put that into perspective, right? You have Siakam, you have Kem, you have Scotty. There are a lot of guys who are in that 10% range. Precious Achiuwa is twice as good as those guys. He's one of the top 10 rebounders in the NBA. How do you not bring that up? Hey, man, we just out-rebounded a team by like 15. We don't do that too often. This guy coming in, that was a pretty big reason why. He's also kind of passive-aggressive dig at the motor. I'm sorry, Precious Achiuwa is a lot of things, but I don't think I would ever accuse Precious Achiuwa of not having a motor. Would you? Am I crazy? Am I watching a different game? I don't get it. Like, I understand, he has sometimes questionable shot selection, but I don't think I could ever say that I don't think I've ever seen Precious Achiuwa not try. I'm sorry, that's weird. And saying that Gary Trent Jr. has been professional about the whole situation, look, yes, he has, but you have not. I don't think Nick Nurse has been professional. I don't think because you are a coach and they are players. This is the NBA, okay? I think coaches have a certain obligation to hold their players accountable, but I also believe that coaches have a certain obligation to be fair. And I also believe that coaches... Oh, James Walsh, he did bring up his rebounding. I apologize if he did bring up his rebounding. Did he bring it up in the context of... Maybe I zoned out for 12 seconds because I got a phone call. Did he bring it up in the context of, he's a really huge reason why? Let me know. Sorry if I misunderstood that. My apologies. The part about Gary being professional, just getting back to that. Yeah, Gary Trent has been professional. And you know what? I was very adamant that we should trade Gary, that he doesn't fit the team. And seeing how he's responded the last month and a half has completely changed my mind about Gary Trent Jr. I now count him as, a guy that you could actually keep on this team. partly because I seem to really value his isolation scoring skills, but also because, I mean, this is going to sound really weird to you guys, but I saw an interview with him where he talks about being an energy giver, and it really vibed with me. Like, I think he's been better. He's been so much better this year. And then the third part of this that really, cemented Gary for the Raptors, for me, was seeing his paint finishing numbers and analytics. They're not as bad as they were last year. They're a little bit better. They're still not good, but they're much better than Fred VanVleet's. And last year, neither one of these two guys could really finish anything in the paint. And now he's getting to the line. He's, finishing in the paint. Defense is never going to be a huge thing, but, we're seeing in Utah and various places that isolation scoring, it's a very rare skill. And to have a guy like this who can actually close out a quarter for you, potentially even close out a game for you, I wouldn't mind Gary Trent Jr. taking a mid-range shot with the game on the line. I think, he's shown that he can get a shot off. He can get off good, clean looks. That's not something that every NBA player can do. I don't think OG Anunoby can generate a great shot for himself to close out the quarter right now. Scotty Barnes probably can't do it necessarily as well. I don't think Pascal Siakam or Fred VanVleet can do it that well. I think Gary's probably your best option on that. So, Tamberlin, what are you saying? To be fair, he's actually trying to pass more, which is a change. He never looked to pass last season. Fair enough. He was a little bit more ball dominant last year, but he still takes shots. I just like the shots he's taking more this year. Whether he's making them or not, I've never judged the player for not making shots. You're never going to see me, come out and say after a guy takes 15 good shots, oh, he went 2 for 15, he's a terrible player. No, take 15 good shots, you win in my book. It doesn't matter if they go in or don't go in. But Fred VanVleet takes a lot of really bad shots too, and I don't ever see Nick Nurse calling him out. And Pascal Siakam takes a lot of plays off on defense, and I don't see Nick Nurse calling him out. So this, to me, I kind of agree. I feel like I just got gaslit, and now I feel like I'm about to get gaslit even more. And here we go. Oh man, I don't even want to listen to this, but all right, screw it.
Hey man, let's have a party. Yeah, listen, it's gonna even itself out one way or another. So you never want to.
All that talk of the slump being just a slump was great.
Hey man, let's have a party.
Can someone please post in the chat what he shot tonight? Because here's the thing. I don't mean to interrupt when he's speaking, but the very first question comes from Doug Smith. Yes, that Doug Smith, who has been slandering Scotty Barnes. He's the one who wrote the article about the work ethic issues. He's the one who leaked the inside source. He is also the one who has gone on Bob McCowan's show and said that he would trade Scotty Barnes. He doesn't see the upside in him. That's the same guy who said all that talk about a slump. He went 3 for 10. That's 30%, Doug. That's 30 fucking percent. He spent 90% of this game at 12.5%. What the hell is going? Yo, like when I watched this for the first time when I was downloading it, I was like, "Oh shit, this is not the same game. This is probably from a different game. They screwed up." That's why the break took so long. I had to confirm that they were actually talking about this dog shit game that I just saw. Now look, I'm not gonna go overboard. Fred VanVleet did not have a dog shit game tonight. I will give credit. He had a decent game. But he's still in a slump. Don't act like it's over, man. Like, don't act like a guy shooting 3 for 10 is cause for celebration. That's below his season average. Like how he was like the worst shooter or the second worst shooter in the league entering tonight? He shot below that value. Just to put that out there. I don't know if someone failed math out there. This is crazy to me. I'm sorry. Like, I'm getting heated. 7 rebounds, 8 assists. Tamberlin, good point, right? So he played like kind of a full game, but those were defensive rebounds. There's a lot of defensive rebounds. High octane game. I don't necessarily rate those numbers in a really high pace game. Like if a guy puts up like, I don't know, 8, 8, and 30 in a game where like his team scores 60, I have to reduce it back down to the percentages. Obviously, if you play faster, there's going to be more points. There's going to be more assists. That's why, no offense to every Canadian fan out there, that's why Steve Nash's MVPs kind of drive me crazy. I don't think he had a great game tonight. I don't think he had a bad game, but I don't think that starting it out with "let's have a party and the slump is over" is the right tone. That's all I'm going to say. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's going to even itself out
Also, I just want to say I don't think his defense was good tonight. Yep, just putting that out there.
one way or another. So, you never want to trend too far downwards. But I thought the last couple games, we've been shooting the ball well, other than the Milwaukee game. But just keep working the offense and try to create good shots. And there's just more rhythm and energy, to the offense and the way that we're sharing the ball now. So, you expect some of those to go down at a higher clip, or you will hope.
How? I don't get it. I'm sorry. I mean, like, I'm actually getting hurt by this. Like, just listening to this, it's weird. How did you shoot the ball well today? 3 for 10, 1 for 8. How? I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm sorry. Like, I feel like, am I in an alternate planet? Like, am I on an alternate universe? Like, is this like a universe where, like, maybe I'm dreaming. Maybe I'm dreaming. Like, maybe this is a dream. Can you guys tell me who's the greatest player of all time? Can I just get some answers? You're not gonna tell me some bullshit, right? Like, this is reality still, right? Like, we're living in a world where one of the bottom 3 shooters in the world right now in the NBA, percentage wise, just shot worse than his season percentage and is declaring a party. LeBron, Kent Bazemore. Okay, well, okay, thank you. LeBron, MJ, we're not crazy, but we do have a couple of Kent Bazemore people, and I got to tell you guys, I have a bit of a trigger with Kent Bazemore mentions, so if it's a joke, it's a joke, but if you mention Kent Bazemore again, I'm going to block you. All right.
On the bench watching the group of Boucher, Achiuwa, and Koloko play, what do you see that they bring? It's sort of an odd mix, but they've been very effective.
Yeah, well, you hope that, coaches got them in the zone, so you hope that, there's room for, a lot of defensive intensity and effort there around the rim and just making stuff hard, and then they get out in transition and put pressure on the rim. So, we got to keep growing that group and keep getting them experience playing together and get more feel and more flow. I thought that they've done a great job the last 2 games and had some good practices, some good shoot-arounds, and had some good carryovers. So, got to continue to grow, and I think, the more they play well, the more leash they'll get, and that's how you grow, that bench unit, and we're going to need those guys. So I thought they did a great job again tonight.
When it comes to how teams have been playing Scotty Barnes a little bit deeper, he's had more room to play make in the middle of the floor. What have you made of that process over the past few games and playing off of him in that capacity?
It's a good spot for him. I think, obviously with that group that we got, he can do a lot of different things, but they're going to sag off of him, just being able to play next action off of him and let him play make from there versus, having him bring the ball up and try to organize the offense. He's already catching in a playmaking position at, a short roll, 17 feet. So he's a great passer. He knows the reads, and he's been setting good screens and just making plays. So, he had another 7 assists tonight, no turnovers. So that's great. That's great for him, and we're going to need him to do that.
How would you describe, you guys finished the first half of the season, how would you describe the first half of the season?
It's like a first half of a season. That's what it was, and we got to focus on the second half. So don't have a great description, so I'll just say that.
What do you need? What do you need to change from the first half?
We need to win. We need to win more.
Precious, skill-wise, athletically, he's just overwhelming. Sometimes, it seems like he doesn't know what the moment requires on the floor, but as he gets his, legs in a game, he can really just take over at times. How important is it to be patient, let him play his way in so he can really contribute?
I think he just got to find ways to be effective and find what that spot is. Like just keep it simple. He's got a tremendous upside, and he'll get to that at some point. But I think for now, just to help this team, just keep it simple. And when he's catching and shooting, it's pretty good. When he's 1-2 dribble to the rim, it's pretty good. When it's quick, decisive, it's pretty good. But there's times where he's trying things out in the flow, and you can see that. And you got, again, coach is very patient with them, so I think it's good for him, and it'll allow him to grow. But
I might be oversensitive to this, but that's unnecessary. Is very patient. I think coach was very patient with you when you shot 12% for an entire series that required Kawhi to hit the shot of his lifetime to get us out of. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to like diss the guy, but like a little perspective would be great, because Precious Achiuwa was younger than you today than you were back then. And he's a raw prospect, and you were supposed to be a shooter. You were a shooter who shot under 13% for an entire series, man. Are you kidding me? Bro, you shot 0 for 11 and you kept your starting spot. You're one of the worst shooters in the league, and they still give you the green light. Like, I don't get this, man. Like, stop talking like you're Dame. It's throwing me off.
I think just going forward for our team to be the best it can be, I think just keeping it simple first, and then as you get the flow in the field, the talent and will shine through.
Is it like that in practice? Do you bust out those, crazy dribbling combos and, against set defenses and practice?
Yeah, he's the same all the time. He's the same.
What's the reaction there when he does that a bit?
Come on, man. We love Precious.
Fred, in most of your career, college, professionally, you've been on teams that have been pretty successful. You've obviously won a lot. What have you learned about yourself kind of as a leader for a team that's still, like you said, you have to win more in the second half of the season, and, you're probably not where you want to be in the standings. What have you learned about yourself as a leader throughout this season so far?
That you're not a leader.
I don't know. I think more so than anything, just trying to stress the little things and, the little details.
I just want to tell you guys something. When people touch their face a lot when they're talking, it's a self-soothing mechanism. I don't mean to be a body language expert, but I read like 6 books about this. I think you all know, right? Like right now, I'm touching my face because I'm stressed because he's lying. But if a guy touches their face, they have to massage their face. They have to cross. So if somebody crosses their arms, they're like extremely defensive about a question. And you'll see there are certain Fred pressers where he's asked a difficult question and he crosses his arms. So right now he's like, he knows he's not a leader. Get the fuck out of here.
Those that add up, and just so many things that we do, that we need to do as a great team would do, which is just things that come naturally. It doesn't come naturally for everyone. So I think there's a lot of things that can get glossed over that, come to bite you at the end. So there's just a lot of, I think, just paying attention to the details, being more disciplined, being more locked in and focused on playing the right way and doing things the right way. I think that will help us a lot more.
Just in terms of like the rhythm and the flow of this first half of the season, I mean, you guys haven't had a 3-game winning streak yet. How much would it help to be able to string a few of those together?
Let's start on Thursday. So, hopefully we can get it started. Again, what's behind us is behind us. We got to look to the future, and, hopefully our best basketball is in front of us. We put something together, and, nobody will remember what the first half of the season looked like. So we got work to do. We got a lot of work to do, and we haven't been great so far, but I like what we've been able to put together over the last couple games.
Okay. Quick thing to mention. So, lie detection is not an exact science at all, okay? But because there are a lot of people who can lie like straight face, they're incredible at it, and if you've watched politicians, you know that. But what these tells are, like, all of these tells, that it's not just your head being itchy. What it is a management of stress. So whatever, you could be stressed about a million things, right? You could be like, maybe while you're talking to somebody, you remember you have a project that you didn't turn in. So you're going to be like, you might touch your face accidentally You might itch your nose like that. You might, start to, you might actually, like, you can watch people, they start tapping their hands. These are all self-soothing mechanisms. We all learn them as children and ultimately continue them because for most people who are not psychotic, lying is uncomfortable, right? There's always a possibility you're going to get caught. Always a possibility that some asshole on YouTube is going to literally live stream it and call you out for it. Haha. But there's always the possibility that the person just has a conscience and lying is uncomfortable, right? So I think, it's kind of interesting how many times you catch this guy sort of saying something that isn't true or contradicting himself or just sort of like, as I said, like sort of gaslighting, people. Like talk. If you listen to this game and you didn't watch the game, you didn't pull up the box score, just say you just listened to this game. How many points do you think he scored tonight? You think you probably think he had the best game of his life or something, right? So I think I'm going to establish a new slogan for Fred VanVleet right here, and you're free to use it if you want. Here we go. And this is going to be, do I want to end on such a negative note? No, I'm going to give you guys a positive. We're at 2 hours and 41 minutes. There we go. That is the new slogan. It's no longer bet on yourself. It's tell on yourself. All right. Because this is true. You're telling on yourself. You got shit going on behind the scenes. You got ulterior motives. You got beef with certain people in the locker room. And Tamberlin's right. Or whoever asked, I think Tampa Bay Raptors asked, why is he always asked about other players? You know why he's asked about other players? Because the people asking him the questions know that he's willing to talk about it. You want to go and talk to Scotty Barnes about OG Anunoby's tough shooting night? You're not going to get shit from him because that's what good teammates do. This is a band of brothers situation. But so every once in a while, there's a little cockroach that gets in the middle of the band of brothers. I'm not trying to hate on the guy, but I'm getting pretty frustrated by this bullshit. Where do I see this going? That's the final note of the night. We're at 2:42. Let's try to get out of here in 2-3 minutes. I know it's almost 1 a.m. We all want to go to sleep. Where do I see this going? I think guys are up. I think guys are available. I have seen a very different Scotty Barnes over the last 5-6 days. Different vibe. Haven't seen him smiling as much as I have the last 5-6 days. There's a lot of confidence and bravado that's come out. He doesn't seem uncomfortable now with not taking shots. He's more like, go fuck yourself. I'm definitely not going to take this shot. It is a different vibe. It's old Scotty for me. I really believe that this is like this version of Scotty that I saw today. Yeah, the box score does not tell it. But to me, this felt like the guy that I saw at Montverde. This is the guy I saw at Florida State. Okay? A guy who impacts the game in so many different ways, controls the pace, controls the tempo, pushes up on defense, pushes the pace of the game, finds guys for easy shots, gets guys in rhythm. OG going, Pascal going, Gary going. He's just getting everybody going. It's wide open threes. Incredible night for him. He's feeling himself right now. He's not going to score 30, 40 points against the Charlotte Hornets. He doesn't need to do that to prove something. To prove something to who? But I think that the writing is on the wall for this core. I do believe that what Fred did, now to the Fred contract situation, in the previous game, I believe we did not see that he addressed it with the media, that he did not get a formal offer. And I believe that he did get an offer. I just want to throw that out there. I do believe that he was approached in conversation for 114. 114 for 5 years, and he turned it down. Or 4 years. Was it 4 years? Yeah, it's 4 years. 4 years, 114, and I believe he turned it down because he wanted to bet on himself. And quite frankly, I think it's backfired a little bit. And maybe, given the season he's having, the Raptors pulled the offer. Is it possible? Given everything that's happened with this team, is it possible? If there was no formal offer made, I don't think there's anything wrong with the Raptors pulling an offer. You haven't signed the contract, right? If you're choosing to go younger and rebuild because you don't believe in this core, or you've kind of seen enough of this core, then I think, it'd be fair to say maybe the offer's gone, right? So now we got to play damage control. We got to come out and say, oh, I didn't get a formal offer. Nothing was formally offered to me. This is the last time I'm going to speak on it. Super political. I think that an offer was made. I think that it was retracted, right? And now I think he is scrambling to find a team. Let me tell you something. If that 114 offer is legitimately still on the table, you don't end that presser by saying you still have a player option that you could actually come on. We have a final caller. Should I take it? We should take it. We've never rejected anyone. MMA Headache, what's up? Hello?
Hello? Hey.
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on, man? Nice channel, everything. I heard you earlier, you spoke about, you said that MMA fighters are not, some of them aren't always angry to fight. So my question is, like, are you an MMA fan?
Am I an MMA fan? I used to be. I used to like Fedor. Why?
Okay, cool. I was just wondering because I know like a lot of people like this, they follow other sports, you know, not just Toronto Raptors, but
yeah, I don't follow a ton of other sports. I got to be honest with you. I've followed other teams before. I used to live in New York, so I followed the Knicks and I followed the Raptors. Never been a big soccer fan. Can't really tell you I've been a big soccer other than the World Cup. And yeah, MMA would probably be MMA, and wrestling is probably like the other thing that I've followed a little bit, and tennis. Random. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, onto like the Raptors or whatever. Do you really feel like Gary Trent's gonna get traded?
Yes, I do. And I don't want it to happen, but I do think it's gonna happen.
But honestly speaking, do you think that there's other guys that should be traded ahead of him though?
Yes, I do. Gary is one of the 6 or 7 players that I would love to keep on this team. Who do you want traded?
I don't want him traded, but I feel like we can get a lot for him. You know, a lot of people really thought he could be the next Kawhi for real, but you know, as seasons went on, you know, injuries, hasn't really gotten the opportunity, to be honest, because he was always behind Fred and Pascal. But still, like even when Pascal was out or Fred was out, he had a lot of opportunities and just couldn't really, like the best he's ever performed, no offense, in his career was in the preseason last season when he was just lighting up threes, isolation at the top of the key. I'm sure you remember that.
Do you remember the New York game?
Yeah. Was it? I think it was this season or last season.
It was last season.
Okay.
Game in New York, 35 piece. I think he's been great, man, and I think there's more to a game than offense. Obviously, he doesn't fancy himself as a first option necessarily. He's a complimentary player, but I think he's a pretty good one. And you know, there was a really solid stretch of the season where you could make a legitimate case that he should be an all-star. I don't think you trade a guy like that when he's making $17 million. He's 25 years old. They don't grow on trees. You know, in terms of league assets, I would count him based on his contract value as a top 32 to top 35 asset in the NBA. I would also count Scotty Barnes as a top 35 asset. I would probably also count Pascal as a top 35 asset. The Raptors have 3 top 35 assets in the NBA, in my opinion. Maybe top 40 assets, but it's up there. So those 3 guys, I feel like, unless you're getting the lion's share, like for Pascal, I you know, I mean, if you're building around Scotty, I don't see how you're going to trade OG. They're boys. They're tight. I don't get it. The chat keeps asking if you're Scotty, but I know you're not, so don't worry about it.
No, I wish. No, I'm playing.
Yeah, no, I know you're not Scotty.
Mic check.
Yeah,
I feel like, I mean, you're right, though. You're right. OG and Scotty, you know, they have a good thing going on. But the thing with that is, like, sometimes OG and Anobi, like what you said, you know, players like him don't always go on trees. But I feel like we have an amazing superstar, Gary Trent. I feel like just for that reason alone, I would make the sacrifice, you know, and trade OG. I mean, OG has been having
what would
a
you
lot
trade
of
OG
He's
for?
a great 3-and-D player. But I feel like at this point, we have so much offensive talent that everybody's just getting in everyone's way. Like people would say Fred is getting in Gary Trent's way.
But why would you trade OG instead of the 28, soon to be 29-year-old point guard? You're just saying because of trade value. But what are you getting back for him that makes any sense to, like, I mean, you're trying to compete. If you're trying to compete, then why do you trade your best defender? And if you're trying not to compete, then why don't you trade some of your more older experienced players? I don't understand this. Like, I get it from a trade value perspective, but like, I would rather trade Pascal than trade OG personally. Is that a hot take for you? Probably. Hello? Okay. It's possible that MMA Headache did not like that answer and hung up, and or possibly his mic just crashed. I don't know. Anyway, that was an interesting conversation to have. To those of you saying, is that Scotty? No, of course it's not. It's not Scotty. And that's happened twice now, right? People saying like, oh my God, it's Scotty. It's not. Don't worry. Anyway, I gotta get going to edit that video, Scotty Trainer, and the feature that I gotta get in tonight, hopefully later. So I do want to say thank you to everybody who, you know, stayed with us. I know that this is maybe this is a what do we do with this type of outcome where the Raptors were kind of like, can we get a direction here? I'm pretty sure most of us would just be relieved if we woke up tomorrow and we found out like that certain guys were just traded, so that we at least know the direction of the team. And or if Masai Ujiri just came out and said, no, we're committed to winning, we believe in this core, and here we're going to trade a future first round pick to get Miles Turner or something like that. I'm pretty sure most of us would just be relieved to know, because at this point, whether you're pro tank or you're pro playoffs, it doesn't really matter. I don't know a sensible person in the world who thinks this team is capable of making the second round. And I don't know how you prove you're capable of making the second round by playing a down to the wire almost game that was still close-ish in the fourth quarter against the Charlotte Hornets at home, when they're missing two of their best four players. I'm sorry. It's a little strange. But anyway, thank you all for staying. If you don't follow on Twitter, I'm getting a lot more active on Twitter. I really didn't think I would like it, but it's kind of cool. I guess, you know, Pensari B-Ball on Twitter, follow us, you know, make us blow up, because everyone's like, yo, you're no one, you got like 215, you know, followers. So I don't give a shit about that, but you know, let's try to get that up to 500 at some point. And if you follow us on Instagram, it's completely different content on the 3 channels. I'm not like doing the same content on 3 channels. So if you just want more Pensari basketball in your life, just follow us on more places, because it's not the same. All right. Peace. Have a good one. Good night. Take care. Oh, and hit subscribe, like, all that stuff. Cheers.